Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Coaches Clinic on Totem Pole Sports. I got Coach Cooper back tonight to talk about mix and match quarters. We're excited. He did a great job last time. Looking forward to hearing him speak. Coach, thank you for coming on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be back. Thank you for having me back. Ready to rock and roll whenever you're ready to rock and
Yeah,
roll.
let's get it, man.
All right, yeah. So last time I talked about quarters coverage and dealt with it primarily from a 12 personnel or a 21 personnel type of deal. But we know offenses have more personnel settings, more formations. And so I wanted to get into some of our checks, which leads us into our mix and match coverage. Where we'll be in some palms. So we'll talk some palms, and then where we have some of our combo and split field coverages, all out of our quarters package.
Yes, sir.
So, all right. I don't know. You want to kick that off just for a second, and you want me to start like with the presentation, or?
Yeah, you can share your screen right now.
Okay, awesome. You'll take this part out.
Yeah, I can cut it out. Yeah, I can cut it.
I asked you to do some editing. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, I'm about to share the screen real quick, Troy.
Yeah.
All right. Come on. So I wanted to pay homage first and foremost to the guys that I got this from, because I'm no way on earth, a genius, or did I come up with any of this stuff myself. The gentleman on the left of the screen, that's Jim Johnson. And this goes back to when he was with the Cardinals and with the Indianapolis Colts, all the way up to when he was with the Eagles. The gentleman on the right, that's my mentor. He was the head coach when I was at Benedictine University. I'm sorry. And him and Jim Johnson were real tight. They're really good friends, best of friends, and so we were really running Jim Johnson's, defense primarily.
And that's who Sean McDermott coach for, correct? Sean McDermott?
Yep. So you'll have guys like Sean McDermott, John Harbaugh, Ron Rivera. There's a lot of guys still in the league on the defensive side of the ball who came up under that Jim Johnson tree. So NFL guys, NFL fans, you guys will start to see some things if you really pay attention to NFL football. Some of the stuff that we're going to talk about and show and display here, you'll see it in a lot of these NFL games still, because there's a lot of those guys off that tree. And, for guys who are, Sabanites or, Nick Saban fans or Kirby Smart fans, you'll see some of the same things in there, because it'll be a different language, where I'll be talking, maybe mono instead of mod or meg, but it's still the same principles.
Yeah, I had a coach come by the school this week, Coach Corey Heatherman, coaches at Rutgers, and he was telling me about Bill Belichick and about Saban, and he's told a story that, the first thing Saban asked when he was around him was like, how do y'all play 3-by-1? So like all these guys, like they have their 3-by-1 checks, and there's different ways to do it. So, and that was interesting that you brought his name up, and like, that's what they always talk about, ain't it?
Yeah. And I mean, you'll see one of these things, like if you go back and you look through guys' careers, you'll see where some of these guys have crossed over and been on the same staff with each other. So some of the thought goes, but the language changes. Bill Belichick has some history when he was with the Colts, as well as Jim Johnson, right? So I'm not sure if they ever really crossed paths working with each other, but philosophy-wise, conceptually, it's a lot of the same things. So again, I just want to make sure that, some of these slides, I want to pay homage to Jim Johnson and John Cooper, because, without them, I wouldn't have probably ever picked this stuff up the way that I picked it up.
Heck yeah.
So, I refer to mix and match quarters. We're going to talk pattern matching, being able to do this out of multiple fronts, and the ability to be able to do this with zone dogs, and how easy it is to teach, based off the coverage to where your linebackers are at. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this slideshow off. So, we base everything on the quarters family. So last week when I was here, we talked about, cover 4, your hard quarters, which your flat foot read safety, being able to get 9 guys in the box. This week, we want to talk about some of the formation checks, personnel checks. So we'll get into some palms. That's when we have the extended twos. Some people I've heard palms referred to as like read 2 or trap 4. We get to it primarily by check, right? It's not like we call it in as palms. We'll call in, our Florida, or our quarters package. And if they come out in a formation, we can get to it by check. We can get the palms by check based off the formation. Then we have our 3x1 adjustment, and that's, it's 3x1 to the 3 wide receiver surface. And I'll talk about what we're doing to the 3 wide receiver surface and then what we're doing to the single receiver surface. And that's, more our combo coverage. And then our combination split field type stuff, Florida Tahoe, it's versus a 2x2, versus 11 personnel looks out of 2x2, 2x2 out of 11 personnel. And again, those are all by check. So in our quarters family, we like to package things verbally for our kids and their recognition. So quarters for us, cover 4, that some people might call it, we just call it Florida. And that was, we play Florida as a base package to tight ends and the open tackles, 21 and 12 personnel type deals. Then we get to Tahoe. Verbally, as I get going, it'll make sense why it's packaged as Tahoe for expanded number 2s out of spread personnel, 2x2 looks, and then Vegas for 3x1, and then our combination split field stuff, we just call it Florida Tahoe. And kids are able to communicate that. We have hand signals for it and things like that. But all of these are by check. And as I get going, it'll make sense kind of how we packaged it. But I want to, kind of kick this off by saying, as a coach, if you can teach it, you can call anything. You could call a play anything, right? If you want to call it a bologna sandwich or a ham sandwich, if you could teach the concept, you'll be okay. I'll just tell a quick story on this, Coach, if that's all right.
Yeah, man.
I had an offensive line coach one time who came up with a verbiage. He called it hamburger splits, right? We all know yard 18.5-inch splits and things like that were a base standard splits. But when he wanted those guys to cut their splits down and go foot to foot, he called it a hamburger split. And we were in a meeting one time and he brought up hamburger splits. Everybody in the room, coach-wise, just looking at him like, what? And he's like, look, it's going to relate to the guys, right? If you have a whole bunch of fat guys in line, free hamburgers, how close are you going to stand to each other? And it's foot to foot. And I could talk to some of these guys now, these old linemen that were on that team. And if I say hamburger splits, they're going to all stand side by side, like to this day. And these guys are almost 40 years old, right? But it's just, if you're able to call it, and able to teach it, you could call it whatever you want to. Another real quick story, just a little anecdote, just so that we can understand as I'm going, just how you call things, what you call things. We were running 3x1 concept, red zone concept. Almost everybody in the world runs it, right? That we're going, number 1 is running a 5-yard in, number 2 is running a 5-yard in, number 3 is running a corner over the top of it. Mm-hmm. We called it double under corner. But to cut down on the verbiage, because we were real young, we abbreviated, we called it duck. Yeah. Right? Then we wanted to whip number 1 and number 2 out of their routes. So instead of running 5-yard in, they're running a 5-yard whip, coming back out. And in staff meeting, head coach, who was also an offensive coordinator, he wanted to call it flamingo because it was in the bird family. Yeah. Then when we get to installation with the players, he says flamingo, and they all start laughing. They just fall out laughing. He's like, well, what makes sense to you guys? What do you guys want to call it? And they called it squirrel. Now, I was a GA, so in between our meeting and practice, I had to go back and update everything, the practice plan, the scripts, the game plan, everything that we were doing to change flamingo to squirrel, have it in everybody's locker before they get out to practice. Mm-hmm. But you could call it whatever you want to call it, right? As long as you're able to teach it. And I'm a big believer in that. So as we package these things, I'll go back just a second, right? Like if we look at palms, right? It's a read 2, it's a soft cover 2 type of deal. So we tried to, Florida for us was quarters, and then we tried to make it in terms of like Nevada, right, for our cover 2 type stuff, right? So if we were actually talking our hard cover 2, we're talking Reno was our cover 2 call. So we had Tahoe, like Lake Tahoe, right? Mm-hmm. And then we had Vegas, right, as our 3x1 check, right? And then you could get into Tampa 2, which would take you back towards the Florida family. But there were some rules in it that were similar to what we teach in quarters in terms of what our mics are doing, in terms of their drops and their eyes and which way they're opening and things like that. So we tried to keep these things in families to make it relatable, right? So I'll go ahead and skip over now, and we start talking about the Tahoe palm check. It's palms coverage, but we call it Tahoe, right? Just like our quarters, we call Florida. The pros of it is it's great for pattern matching. It's a zone coverage, but you can eliminate space by not spot dropping and pattern matching, and really have defenders in proximity to receivers that tighten up those windows just like man coverage does. You can also get some trap coverage out of it. You know, depending on what the offense does, you can get some trap coverage out of it. And then it's great as a defense for quarterback trigger, right? The quarterback takes us where we want to go, right? It's not until that quarterback is ready to throw the ball do we really have to start reacting to it, right? And it gives you ability to deal with flat threats, right? Like threats to the flat. It gives you the ability to be able to handle and deal with vertical and seam threats. And then, you know, in this coverage, right, you drag your help's eyes with your communication, and that's going to be a big topic of conversation as we get going deeper into this. Then you got secondary rotation, right? Like guys are going in certain areas that are beneficial to defenses in terms of pursuit angles, right? And it gives you the ability to have options and to be able to play chess against offensive play callers in their RPO packages. And as I get going, we'll talk about some of that when you see some of the film. It's going to clear up some things for some guys that are battling this on a week basis. Then we got multiple personnel, multiple fronts. We can run this coverage out of any of our defensive personnel packages, sub packages, nickel, dime. We had a joker, which was kind of like a 3-3-5. Our nickel was more like a 4-2-5 look. You can run it out of base. You can run it out of 3-4 or Okie. So you could change your personnel, you could change your fronts and still have the same coverages because you've taught it, right? And then it's great for disguise and creating flux for those quarterbacks in their mind and their vision. Also, it screws with play callers a little bit because there's an ambiguity of, is it cover 4, is it cover 2, is it man-to-man, is it 2-man? Like, based off of what the offense is giving you, it can look like any one of those coverages at any given time. So just imagine if you're running this, you run it 16 times in the first quarter, and for each one of those 16 times they saw a different coverage because they were running different combinations or different pass concepts or different route combinations or things like that. Now, to talk about cons, it requires athleticism because it does have man principles. It requires great patience in the pedal for safeties, and then you're going to lose your safeties as immediate run help defenders. Like, so last week we talked that quarter stuff where you got 9 in the box and we were seeing those safeties coming up, making plays at the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage. They're going to be a lot later to the box. They're going to be a lot later to the ball in the run game when you're running Palms or when you're running Tahoe. It does have a potential to place your apex defenders in that run pass conflict, which creates some opportunities for RPOs, but there's some things that you can do within it to, like I said, play chess and have options against those RPOs. Then it requires awareness of personnel and formations. You got to be able to teach your fellas, and your guys got to be able to understand and recognize and be aware of different personnel packages that offense are running on the field and that they're lining up in. You got to be able to recognize a tight end as a tight end, right? You got to be able to recognize 3 receivers or 2 running backs. Like, you got to be able to recognize this stuff from a play caller, from a position coach to the players on the field. Same with formations, right? Like, we're not going to treat I formation the same that we would treat, you know, Y trips or tight end trips or trade or any other formation, right? So you guys got to be able to recognize that. And then and bold and caps down here, right? It requires great communication and great pursuit in order to be sound and effective. You got to be able to teach that. You got to be able to teach your guys to communicate, and then they have to be able to transfer that over, and they got to communicate. And then you got to be able to teach pursuit. The guys got to be able to and be willing to run to the ball in order for this defense to be sound, this coverage to be sound and effective. So then we'll get into some of these rules, right? Now, when I get to talking about the depth on these things, we line up our depth is based off the wide receiver, right? Like, we don't care. I mean, of course we care about the line of scrimmage, but when we're talking about the depth of a DB based on the wide receiver, we're talking about the depth based off the wide receiver, right? Not the line of scrimmage. So our corners are 7x1 inside leverage, right? We want them 7 yards off the wide receiver. So if that wide receiver is in the backfield, 2 yards in the backfield, our corners may be 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, but they're 7 yards off that wide receiver. You know, same thing for the safeties. You know, we want them 12 yards off of the wide receiver. And then I have here field split hash rules, right? And that's based on the position of the ball to the rest of the field, to where the receiver is lined up, to where that hash is. All right. And as I get to going with the film, it'll start to make a whole lot of sense. And I want you to kind of bring me back to that, coach, if you can. Just
Yes,
make
sir.
sure I'm covering that piece of it. And then your nickel and your Sam or your dime and your will, they're going to be apex on the number 2 and the end man on the line of scrimmage. Nickel and Sam are going to be to the call side. Dime and will are going to be apex off that number 2 and the end man on the line of scrimmage to the weak side. And then inside linebackers, they're lined up based off the front call. So if we're in, over or what we call outlaw, they're going to be lined up, where they're supposed to line up in that front. Or if we're in under, we might have 230s out of our linebackers. Or if we're in a 3-4, we might have 230s out of our 2 inside linebackers. And we get to our assignment keys. Corners, we're reading number 2 to number 1. Right. We want to make sure we have big eyes. That's great peripheral vision. And we want to be able to quarterback key. So as we're seeing 2 to 1, we got to still be able to see that quarterback. Safety is the same. We're going 2 to 1. Now we got to run pass key. All right. And it's very similar. And I'll talk through it when we get to the film. Very similar to what we talked about last week with the quarter stuff. You got to be able to run pass key. Got to be able to be slow out in your pedal. You got to have those big eyes and be able to see the quarterback, see your run pass key, and see, your immediate vertical threat, and still be able to go 2 to 1 in your read. Max depth and stay square. What that means is you got to be able to pedal, and you want to stay square in your pedal as long as you can, as deep as you can in your pedal. And again, I have it on there. I really emphasize that big eyes quarterback key. I got that on there twice for the safeties. They have to have great peripheral vision. You have to train that. It's easy to do. You stand up, have, one safety stand on the sideline, another safety stand on the hash, and they throw up different numbers with their hands, and a guy just has to backpedal off the hash, and you tell them they got to repeat the numbers. They just got to shout out the numbers as the other safeties change the numbers, rotate through it, and make them work their eyes. And now your apex defenders, and again, this is your nickel Sam to the call side, your dime will to the weak side. You got to be able to run pass key. And then, we have an 8-yard reroute. So when I say that it's a pattern matching versus a spot drop, right? Here's about the only time they have a spot. They want to get to an 8-yard reroute. They have an 8-yard reroute aiming point. And again, that's 8 yards off the receiver. Right. So if that receiver is 2.5 yards in the backfield, like some slot receivers like to do, our reroute point might really be linebacker depth, half a yard deeper than where we lined up at. Right. But there's an 8-yard aiming point for reroutes off of the depth of the number 2 receiver. And then we want to make sure we have our head on a swivel, and we want to be able to sink and settle. And the sink and settle, when I start talking really with the film on that, that's where communication and being able to drag our help's eyes, communication from the secondary to our underneath guys, being able to drag their eyes to these new threats and being able to get them to know if they're supposed to sink at this point in time or settle at this point in time. Then our inside linebackers, it's the Mike and the 4-3 stuff, your Mike and your Mac and the 3-4 stuff, or, your Mike and your Sam and your 3-3 type of stuff, or your Mike and your Will and your 3-3 type of stuff, depending on where your rotation is at. But they'll run pass key, open to the nearest threat, get good depth and the head on a swivel, and sink and settle. And so then we move into the communication. I think I talked a little bit about this last week. China versus in, right? As we talk about the corners, communication. China for us is always any in breaking route, any immediate in release underneath 5 yards, underneath that linebacker depth. We call that China, and that alerts everybody that that's an in breaking route or immediate in release under 5 yards. The in would be anything over the top of the linebacker depth, 7, 10, 12, 15 yards would be an in call. And then out calls, you got to be able to communicate those things as a corner. A safety, we got to set the passing strength. All right. And if you look down at the inside linebackers, they got to set the run strength. And sometimes that run strength and that passing strength will be different. But the safety has the overriding call on that. If we set that passing strength, the passing strength is the passing strength. The linebackers, they got to be able to communicate that run strength for the front, for your D line. But in terms of our linebackers, where the Sam is going, the Sam's going to that passing strength. And so I'll walk through that on the film a little bit. Then safeties, they got to be able to China versus in as well. They got to be able to out. And the safeties, they got to echo any China and in call. If they hear China, they got to echo it. If they hear in, they got to echo it. And then as we get down to the apex defenders, your nickel and Sam, they're echoing all. China's ins, outs, they got to echo it all. They can call it as well. They can call China, they can call in, they can call out, but if they hear it, they have to echo it so the next defender can hear it. And then, get down to the inside linebackers, they echo all. If they hear anything, they got to echo it. And then they set the run strength. That's, pre-snap, they come out, they get lined up, and the mic or the Mac, they have to set that run strength. So when we talk about points of emphasis on this positionally, corners want to be great at tempo pedal. That's that transition pedal, going slow to fast in the pedal. Immediate flat responsibility, that is their job. They have the immediate flat responsibility in Tahoe or Palms, however you want to call it. And then we're triggered off the quarterback. So we're quarterback trigger secondary. And then we got to be able to transition. We used to always say, you want to be shot out of a cannon. Once you decide to go, you want to be shot out of a cannon. Stick that foot in the ground and go. And then, they got to maintain leverage, and they have to participate in that secondary rotation. That secondary rotation has to be excellent from our corners. Safeties, you're pass first in this defense. And that's very important, again, because we'll be late to the run game, but it's a pass first safety coverage. And their tempo pedal as well want to be slow out. We don't want to create extra cushion for number 2 receivers by getting out of there too fast. We want to understand our vertical leverage threats, transition over the top of number 1. And as I get to breaking this thing down, if number 2 is going out and we have to get over the top of number 1, we want to have great transition, great angles, and we want to be able to get there immediately. We don't want to waste steps. And then we're to the ball. And then we have to be great in that secondary rotation as well. Apex defenders, again, that's your nickel and Sam to the call side, dime and wheel to the weak side. You're front first, and then you're late to the flats. And this is the reason for this defense, because these apex defenders, they're front first and they're late to the flats. So we can get some of this trap coverage out of the corners. And then we have that 8-yard reroute aiming point, and it is huge to understand that that's 8 yards off the wide receiver, not 8 yards off the line of scrimmage, or 8 yards off of your original alignment. It's 8 yards off the wide receiver. And then we're pattern matching, and we're echoing all calls that we hear. We're echoing all, and we're sync and settle based off our pattern match rules. Inside linebackers, you run first. And there's a difference between run first and front first. For us, front first is I have my gap responsibility, but I also have my pass responsibility. Run first, I'm a run first guy. If I see anything run, I'm lost on that. You're not going to catch me in any pass responsibility if I got run. If I took that run and I read it, I'm going to shoot my shot. And then, we open to the back, or number 3, speed, space threat. And this was something that we talk about. We spend a great deal with these guys on these topics, on this subject matter in terms of the game plan. So if we're getting wide splits out of the number 2 wide receiver, you may have to open to that number 2 wide receiver versus opening to the back. If those number 2s are a little tighter and the back is getting involved and they're releasing that back, then we might get you opening to the back, because we're going to treat that back like he's your number 3 wide receiver. And then we got pattern match, echo all, and sync and settle. And as I get going with the film, I think I'll clear all that up, Troy.
Yes, sir.
So here I got this diagram right here. If we focus on the right-hand side of this, right, our primary thing is if we get that outbreaking route underneath linebacker depth by a number 2 wide receiver, the corner has that immediate flat threat. We're not going to force, right, our wheel right here, who by design of this defense, unless we're gap exchanging with the end, is our B-gap player, right? So the way this is drawn up, the wheel is a B-gap defender. We're not going to force a B-gap defender to have to be responsible for a flat route or a speed out or any of those type of things by number 2.
Yeah.
So we'll get that trap coverage off on this. And that means that this weak safety here, and our terminology is a little different. We call them weak safety versus free safety. You're never free, right? You're not ever going to just cover grass, right? Your strong safety or your weak safety. We can call it boundary safety or field safety, but you're never free, right? But we want to lose that concept as soon as you walk in the room. There's never a free moment for safety. So here, the weak safety, he's got to open and get over the top of number 1. He's got to be able to go from 2 to 1 in his keys and see the route, see the release of the number 1 receiver, and adjust so that he's over the top of it. Whereas in our Florida stuff, he's underneath, right? He's robbing off underneath number one, right? And so just let's imagine for a second, like if we look over here to the left side of this, if we get 4 verts, right, we're just matching, right? So here's the mix to the right, and here's the match to the left, right? 4, we get verticals, like he's over the top of that linebacker, he's the safeties. Number 2 is vertical. Corner, you're locked on number 1. Right. So now let's just say for a second that number 1 runs a 5-yard hitch or a stop route, right? That's the corner. That's immediate flat threat. The corner's got immediate flat threat. All right. So we talked through it. It's a loose cover 2. It's a strict pattern read coverage with no zone. Like we're doing no spot dropping in zone coverage, right? We're not just covering grass. Nobody on this field is covering grass. And we will zone blitz out of this. All right. Like we'll get to some zone dogs out of this for sure. The big thing on this is our apex defenders, you cannot get outflanked by a running back. You cannot get outflanked by, a short crosser coming across the field. You are the anchor. So if that running back comes out and wheels up, that's the anchor, the safety, the Sam or the wheel. They've got to take that. And this is the way it's drawn up. If this flat route by the running back turns into a wheel, our anchor has to take that.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now after this, I'm gonna be ready to get to some film. So just going through the Tahoe check. All right. So here we got we're running Tahoe. We had a Florida call, but we checked the Tahoe because we got these wide splits, extended number 2s, stacked receivers. So now we've got some opportunities to protect our guys to the field. Our passing strength is to the field. Our run strength is to the boundary, which means our linebackers are inverted. This is our Sam here. This is our nickel here, right? Our run strength is based off of where this back is at because it's an even formation, right? Now they've got these huge splits up front. So, that spreads us out a little bit. But because we're able to just about two-gap play through this inside shoulder here with the field DN, we're able to go straight to our pass, right, with our nickel. So that eliminated him from having that run pass conflict. And I just wanted to make sure I showed a couple of these clips just to make sure you understand how the safeties are going to be late. Whereas when we're in our Florida, these guys are hard, flat foot read guys. And here they're going to be pedal first or pass first. So their first step, they better be slow out in that back pedal. We won't want to get too much depth on our first step, right? So we see here, right, if we watch both of these safeties, their first steps are back. They're backpedaling, right? Now I'm going to talk through their run pass key from the end zone view of this. Their pass key is still that outside hip of this guard out to their number 2 vertical threat. Their number 2 vertical threats are the slots on each respective side because Tahoe for us, or Palms coverage for us, is a 2-by-2 check. With the 10 personnel are these extended number 2s. Now we're in a 3-4 here, right? But we're zone blitzing, and our Sam really just comes up and gets on the line of scrimmage, gets some 3-point stance. He felt more comfortable coming off the edge that direction. He was a taller guy, which we're fine with that, right? But we're still 3-4. We're still moving that nose back to that weak side, so we're getting to an over type of front. But see, these safeties are going to get there late, and that's just being able to understand what we're doing in coverage, right? Safeties are pass first guys. Now, as we talk about linebackers playing the front, the apex defenders playing the front, 47 here, our Will is a B-gap defender. So you'll see his first step is to his gap. And then he's got to play football, right? Where if we went back to that very first play, and we'll see it again on a play coming up here, where we've got a guy protected by a 3 technique. So his first step, and we'll see it from this side of the film here. But if we watch the Sam here to the field, his first step can be more towards the receiver. He could be more of a pass responsibility guy first, because we're going to play this 3 tech here, or we're going to play this B-gap defender from the line of scrimmage with our D-line. So that allows us to play pass first with our apex defenders, right? And that's where we start playing the chess match with the RPOs, and we'll get into some of that RPO look stuff here in a second. But here goes another look here, right? Where 45 is not a B-gap defender. He knows that he's got the B-gap defender with 55 there at the DN, so he could play pass first, right? And as I start talking about RPOs, one of the greatest tools that we'll have defensively to defend against RPOs is putting your 3 technique to the back. Now, most guys are going to RPO to the side that the back is lined up on. Now, there's some differences in that, like if you're getting fast motion, jet sweep, fly motion type stuff, where you may get RPOs to the front side of it. But when the back is lined up parallel or half a step back from the quarterback, most of your RPO threats are going to come from the backside, right? So if you can find a way to get your B-gap defender on the line of scrimmage, whether it's a 3 technique or coming from a 4 or 4-eye or a 5 with the gap exchange, you'll do yourself a great benefit into being able to create less conflict for your apex defenders.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and we see here the safeties are late to the ball, which they're pass first. Now, one of the things that we found was that, guys are going to try to get in pistol once they figure out that we're going, B-gap, line of scrimmage guy, whether it's the DN or the 3 technique or, 4-eye or stunt, gap exchange. They want to try to get into a pistol to kind of hide some of that RPO stuff. It doesn't bother us because pass protection wise, that's more of a benefit for us. Those pistol running backs, it's harder for them to pick up stunts from linebackers. So as we look at this one here, we're in our 3-3 stuff. And again, this is where I just wanted to make sure that I showed multiple fronts, multiple personnel packages. We're in almost a stacked 3-3 look. We're playing with our shades, right? Moving late. 42 here, he does not have a B-gap defender on the line of scrimmage, so he's got to play the front. He's a run first, his gap first is his responsibility. Where 49, the Mike, the inside linebacker, he's run first. If he sees run, we know we lose him in coverage. He's going to be late in coverage, and we're okay with that. So here's an example where we have, a 4-3 type of look. Apex defender is showing like he's blitzing. We're able to do some disguise stuff to screw with the protection, screw with the quarterback's eyes. Safeties get there late. But I would not ever tell anybody be afraid of being in a 5-man box versus, wide split number 2s. Mm-hmm. You can still be gap sound and still play coverage that allows you to protect your apex defenders from being in run-pass conflicts. Now we're able to see here, right? Our B-gap defender on the line of scrimmage is our 3 technique. So that allows our Sam to be a pass-first guy, whereas to the opposite side and to the boundary for our Will to the weak side, right? He's a run-first guy, right? Then they just fold in. But here we can see the Mike, he sees run, he's got to shoot it. He's got to shoot his gap responsibility and play firm on the run. And then we're still, crack and replace on the outside for our safeties and our corners, just like we talked about last week. But this does allow your safeties. Your safeties are still, run leverage, inside shoulder run leverage. And you'll see here, right, as this block is coming in, the safety is essentially on crack and replace here, right? He comes in for the Mike safety, sees that he's coming in. He's able to come down on that once he sees the engagement. That receiver didn't do a great job engaging, but the safety felt through it. He's still run past key on this guard and tackle. And as you can see here, his fit is off of where this backer is at. So this backer comes inside, safety's got to clean it up to the outside. We call our safeties cleanup men, right? Which allows us to have some interesting conversations and some fun with it when we're installing things, take it back to some old Western type of deals in terms of being a cleanup man. That really gets guys hyped up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So here we're again in another 3-3 type of look, 3-3 stack type of look. And you'll see now our safeties are getting there late. This would have been, what we showed last week. Our safeties are making plays like that, 2 yards in the backfield. Now, they're gaining the extra 2 yards. But we're getting something out of this defense where we wouldn't want to play hard at 10 yards on top of those receivers. All right, so now we'll see some RPO stuff. or some, we're getting ready to get some RPO stuff. I think this is the last true run thing. But again, this is, try to match that B gap defender on the line of scrimmage to the side of the back. And that's one of your tools. That's one of your chess pieces, right? In terms of stopping RPOs or combating our RPOs, not stopping them, but combating RPOs, forcing guys, dictating the offenses that you want them to run the ball or to pull the ball, right? Because we don't want them to dictate to us all game long as defensive coaches. Right now, here's some of the stuff that we could do with our disguises, right? We're showing our zone blitz stuff, but we're walked up from a secondary perspective and we hang in there late, right? We're showing cover zero, right? Here's another chess thing that you can do in terms of combating RPOs, right? So we've got these wide splits again, right? Back is to the boundary. We do not have our B gap defender on the line of scrimmage into the boundary. So in this instance, we're showing zero, which should tell a quarterback that, he's not really going to have run pass conflict out of this apex defender into the boundary because it's cover zero, right? So we're enticing them to hand the ball off instead of, pull it and throw the ball. But we're really in Tahoe. You see these guys back out late. All they need to do snap is be to their depth, 12 yards off the receiver. So if we go back and look at this, our corners are, our corner here is at 7 off the receiver. Our corner here is disguising a little bit more. He's hanging in there, so he's going to, open and run with it, which, sometimes we can get into some things where I wanted to make sure I put this clip in there because we can get into some things where in Tahoe we press or we press bail. It's a little more advanced. This was a fourth-year senior, very intelligent kid. So we were able to do a little more disguising, especially into the boundary with him. He was more of our boundary corner, where number 5 was more of our field corner. But it's still just Tahoe. And yes, that was an RPO. They were going to bubble it, but the quarterback pulled because he saw cover zero. And again, you'll see here, our nickel to the field, because he has that three technique to his side. Even though he's disguising, he's pass first because he's playing the front, or the wheel to the boundary, right?
Yeah.
He's got to hang in there. He's got to run first. He's got to play the front. Where the Mike he sees run, he's got to shoot it. So here we get an actual where they pull it. And again, this is where for the corners, even in the RPO, and as I get more into the pass stuff, we'll talk about it. But remember, I said the corners are your immediate flat threat. So if they get immediate flat, whether it's 2 on a hitch, 2 on an out, 1 on a hitch, that's the corners. Our linebacker will get there late. He's playing the front. He's lost in space. He's caught on that run pass conflict. We had our one technique to the boundary, so he's caught in that one in that pass conflict, run pass conflict. We did not do a great job of disguising or protecting this. We just played it straight out, and they caught us in a moment where they were able to complete a pass. But our corner comes up and makes that tackle, right? And again, this is a match coverage type of deal where we always want to have a body in proximity to routes. And again, we're pursuing to the ball. We've still got about 6 bodies over there. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry about that.
All right, Coach. I appreciate you, man.
So here we go. Now we've got more of that tight pistol type of look where they're trying to disguise it for us, where they don't want us to be able to align our B gap defender on the line of scrimmage to the back. But we're in our 3-4 personnel. So we've probably got some kind of game going here. And actually what we're doing, we're bringing double edge pressure here. And so they're RPO and off of our pressure. And again, this is immediate flat threat for the corner. He's got to come up on that. Safety's going to react because it's over the top of our linebackers. One of the things I like about our double edge pressure, whether we're going, single edge or double edge, but what I like about our edge pressure in this is it clears it up for the safety in terms of, is it over the top of the linebacker, clears it up for our corners in terms of the read. So right here, right now, safety knows that's over the top of the linebackers because those guys are sucked in. So he's breaking on that, and if they were able to complete that, they might have picked up a first down, but that's a 5-yard gain. We're in proximity. Now you see here, our Mac, who's our weak side inside linebacker in our 3-4 stuff, he initially wants to align to where he's going in the blitz, right? Where he's going in our zone pressure, right? Because he knows that he's got to be a little wider, right? The Mike brings him back in because, hey, you got to play the front. You got to align to the front, and you have to play run first. And so he sees run, he's got to shoot it. He's going to get there late. And we're fine with that because secondary-wise, we're going to cover those things up. So here's another RPO type of look. And I want to look at it from this angle right here. It's our 3-3. He's cheating to the field because we had some game plan things with these guys, the things that they like to do to the field, which, that's just game plan. But it was our 3-3 stack type of look. He's stacked, and he's just cheating a little bit, giving himself a 30, just getting a little wider alignment. But now we're bringing pressure. We're bringing a bomb type of blitz where we're bringing our edge instead of bringing our wheel, into off the edge. We're bringing them to the B gap, which still gets us a B gap defender on the line of scrimmage. For the life of me, I don't know why this quarterback didn't pull this to throw this, because this guy's coming downhill hard and heavy. But again, our safeties are tracking. Our nickel is there. We're still getting pursuit to the ball. Now, when we talk about quarterback trigger, this is a great clip for me to show quarterback trigger, right? Immediate flat threat, number one runs a stop. What we teach our corners, and I want to pause this right when we get to the point where it's the quarterback trigger. As that quarterback's front hand drops off the ball, that's what we want to break. Right? We throttle down, we hold ourselves, we hold our water, right? Because we know we have immediate flat threat. But there's no reason for us to jump that and create a situation where they could throw a corner or some route behind us by the number 2 because, the quarterback is still holding the ball. So we break on this. And I know guys, I've talked to a couple guys, I've shown this clip a couple times at other clinics, and I've got guys who's like, is your corner late? Our corner is breaking on this quarterback's throat. When that quarterback drops that front hand off the ball, we're shot out of there like a cannon. And we get there, he misses the tackle, but he's there, and that allows the cavalry to get there. And this is where pursuit is so important in here. Force it back to the inside and allow your work to get there. I don't know very many receivers that want to live like that all game long, off of RPO to gain 0 yards and to get hit by a corner and then get tackled by a DN, outside linebacker, and a safety. So here's a situation where they're going RPO, and I'm not sure if they had a miscommunication or if they were really trying to pull this to run this, but somewhere this quarterback gets caught in it, and we're able to react and rally and, treat it like a scramble and just get there to tackle him. But if we could see this here, right, this 3 technique allows this guy to be pass first. So again, we're playing chess against RPOs. We've got double eagle here, right, with 2-3 techniques. But we've got this 3 technique to the backside. He's a pass first guy. He does not have to react hard and heavy. And so that gives us an opportunity to, dictate to them, are they running or pulling or holding the ball or throwing the ball? So here again, we look at some of this alignment stuff, right? This receiver, line of scrimmage is what, 37-yard line, but this receiver is lined up straddling the 35-yard line. So, when we talk about this, he's 7 yards off the line, not the line of scrimmage, but the receiver. So he's almost playing at linebacker depth, right? Because we're based off of the line of scrimmage, not based off the line of scrimmage, we're based off the receiver. Where our safety here, this is the 37, so he's lined up on the 20, which would say that he's 12 yards off the line of scrimmage. But this is the on the ball line. This is the on the ball receiver here at the slot, so he's lined up at the 36. So he's about 13 yards, which I would tell him that I want him more at 12. Now here's another one of these RPO type of deals, right? And this is where it gets a little tough, murky for our corner, right? Is this an immediate flat threat? Not as much. It's over the top of the linebackers. The safety has to match this. And this is not to say that, in this coverage, you'll never get hit with the RPO. This is just to say that you're able to give guys different looks, different things where you force them to have to work. This is one of the best passing offenses in the country this year that we played them. And, we eliminated the majority of what they were able to do passing game-wise, just because of some of the different looks that we were giving them, things that we were doing pre-snap. You can see they're moving their back around. This is one of those perfect play teams, which, as a defensive coach, sometimes as an offensive coach, I really can't stand it because sometimes you have to put it on the kids. But, they're moving their back around, trying to get away from our B-gap defender. And we didn't adjust to it. We just lined up and played it straight. And so they got an RPO on us. They got a completion. They picked up 7 yards. Got 4 guys to the ball. We're in good shape there. Now here's one where the immediate flat threat is the number 1 receiver. He's stopping. I want to show where the receiver, our corner, right? He sees it. He's throttling down, but he's not going until that quarterback triggers him. Now the quarterback triggers him, and he's shot out of there. He takes on the block and impacts the play, and then we get the cavalry to the ball. It's another one of those situations where, we had the B-gap defender. We're playing B-gap defender to the backside. Creates a little flux for the decision. Quarterback is a little late throwing the ball, helps us out. We're playing chess against RPOs. We're not just letting guys sit back and just pick on our apex defenders and put them in run pass conflict. Now here goes another one of those situations, RPO. Excuse me. Where now the immediate flat threat is coming from the wide receiver. But if we see where the corner is triggering on this at, quarterback's front hand drops off the ball. Corner is in his break, driving on the ball. If that ball doesn't hit the turf, I'm almost betting that we picked that off and we're walking the other direction with it. And if we look at the front here, right, we're in our 3-4 type of deal, but we're stunting to the back to get that B-gap defender on the line of scrimmage. Here's another one of those perfect play offenses. So, we get to see this offense coach, like they literally were 160 plays a game. 3 weeks, 160 plays a game 3 weeks before we played. We had them at about 84 plays this game because they spent so much time at the line of scrimmage looking back to the sideline, trying to figure out what we were doing coverage-wise, because, this is one coverage that we ran, but we have a myriad of other coverages. We have a handful of other coverages that we run that look the same from the shell. And so they're looking back to the sideline because we've created a little bit of flux in there for the quarterback and for the play caller. And so we've slowed their offense down, their tempo down. This is a delay a game for a perfect play offense. That's an up-tempo offense, right? And that's simply just because, the things that we're doing, we're showing pressure. We weren't really, intimidated by the number of plays that they ran or the tempo that they ran, because we know that we can do some things secondary wise to slow them down a little bit. But here goes one of those zone dog type of looks where now we're bringing our outside backer 3-3 package, 3-3 personnel. This is our joker package where we have the nickel and the 3 linebackers. We're bringing those guys on B-gap blitzes, dropping the nose off as a short hook defender. And our outside, now our Mike is replacing for the nickel, and our Mac is replacing for the wheel. I'm gonna go ahead and skip out of this one. Here goes another one of those zone pressures, right? This one is actually a safety. Both of our blitzers coming into the B gaps tackled the running back in the end zone, right? Now, if we watch both of our linebackers here, right, they know that they're almost pass first in this situation because they don't have a gap. We're two gapping here with our nose, as you know, not even really two gapping. He's a zone dropper, but we've got three guys for two A gaps, right? So they can play more pass first. And when we get to the end zone, you'll see this. These guys, they're not taking it as hard as they would normally because we're bringing that double edge pressure. So now we've kind of inverted the responsibilities. Our inside backers are now playing the front instead of playing the run because we're bringing pressure into the front from the outside. But gives you an opportunity to zone pressure in that, and your backers, they understand the coverage. It's the same coverages that we've been running. Same rules. So here comes a double edge pressure where, it's a tackle for a loss, and everybody, we're getting 8 guys, 9 guys to the ball in pursuit. And I just want to make sure I showed a couple of zone pressures in here because I said that this is a great thing. You can mix up your front. You can mix up your personnel, right? You can get some zone blitz and some zone pressures in there. It's another zone pressure. And then we'll start to get to some coverage stuff after this, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Look at this from the end zone. Where we see our Mike here, he's taken off. He's not playing the run at this moment because we're bringing this pressure from outside in. So he's playing pass first. Our Mike and our Mac, they're able to play pass first on their first step, and then they react back to the ball. So here's another one where we're disguising things. It looks like we're getting into some zero. Guys are backing out late, right? Now, this is where I want to talk about a little bit of our rotation. When I say secondary rotation, corner is immediate force. Safety is secondary force. Backside corner is home run shot. He's got to be at the goal. He's got to beat the ball to the goal line. Backside safety is flat across the field, react to the ball once you get to the opposite hash. Now, I would like to see this safety go ahead and beat that guy across face, not stop his feet and dance with the guy. But that's what the rotation is going to look like in this. And so when we're doing any of our pursuit stuff out of this coverage, that's the rotation that I was looking for as a secondary coach, is just to make sure whichever way the ball goes, that guys are rotating that way. And there's a reason for that. The reason for that is if you get double passes or if you get bubble passes or if you get any type of trick play where they're trying to get you to go, heavy pursuit to the left, and then get something back to the right or get something back vertical, you still get guys' eyes and feet and body headed in the right direction to be able to cover for the next guy. So we see here, this is, hook and ladder trick play, but corner comes up, he's immediate force. Safety is secondary force. Both of those guys get there. They made the nickel miss on the hook and ladder, but our corner and our safety are in on it. And then, we've got a home run responsibility guy in case everybody misses a tackle. Now here goes a double, like a reverse pass, right? Where we see where the secondary rotation, the corner wants to come up immediate force, secondary force. I lose my backside safety because he comes up thinking that the force is coming to his side, which I'm fine with, but then he's got to react back. And now we get a hand on the ball. This was a play where they truly had us beat because everybody's reacting to the ball. But because guys understand their rotation and where their responsibility is at off that rotation, this is an incomplete pass for us. Now, again, I told you, Coach, this is one of the top 5 offenses in the country. We got these guys, 33-6 in the third quarter. Right? And a lot of that was defensively. We'll see some things in there where, there's some interceptions going the opposite direction, turnovers going the opposite direction over the next couple of weeks. If we get into some cover 3 stuff and get into some of our man-to-man stuff or bracket stuff, you'll see where we really had their quarterback really screwed in the head in terms of what he was seeing, and he was just giving us the ball back. Here goes another one here where you get a reverse, and they're trying to, you know, play with. They're trying to attack our aggressiveness because we really are an aggressive secondary. But you see immediate force, secondary force, flat across to the home run, right? And that secondary rotation, it covers up. And as we can see, guys in the secondary are the ones that are getting in on this play. Safety forces it, corner makes a tackle. All right, here we go. Now we're into some pure pass stuff, coach. All right, so here we can start talking about, you know, corners rules, safeties rules, where guys are going. Right, corners are reading cover number 2, safeties are reading number 2. And again, our rules on this: if this number 2 is out underneath linebacker depth, now we're getting into our trap. The corner is immediate threat responsibility, or immediate flat threat responsibility. Right, corners. So 2 is out, 1 is vertical. Corner has got 2, safety's got 1. And then, you know, we're getting here late to the flat with the outside linebacker, right? Versus if we get immediate flat threat by number 1, he's running anything 5 yards and under, hitch, stop, speed out. Corner's got that, right? Anything vertical by number 2, corner knows that he's got number 1 matched. Anything vertical over the top of linebacker by number 2, the safety knows that he's got him and he's taking him. Now, our reroute guys are apex defenders. Their reroute rules are, again, based off of 8 yards off that receiver. So if we look at this here, this receiver is lined up on about the 43-yard line. So 8 yards off of that would be about the 49-yard line. That would be where our aiming point for reroute is here. It'd be the same for this kid here. His reroute point is really about a yard deeper than where he's lined up at to the field. Right, and we can look here. Corner is lined 7 yards off the receiver. Corner is aligned to 7 yards off the receiver. Safeties are aligned 12 yards off the receiver. He's playing a little deeper. This guy had a little bit more speed, so we wanted to back off a little bit against this guy just in case we got that vertical threat with who this person was matchup-wise. Mike's responsibility in this is to get depth and to be able to hear and track these calls. And so I want to talk through some of the calls here, right? We've got a China release by number 2. He's coming in immediately inside underneath linebacker depth. So safety should be screaming China, China, China. Our outside backer here should be screaming China, China, China. The mic should hear it and echo it, which should bring guys off. We've got a China call up top by the corner, China, China, China. That brings him off. He should not chase it. And we'll see, we get some better reps in here where he's not chasing it. I'm not sure if he's chasing or if he's reacting to the rollout. But China, China, China starts to bring guys off of this, where now they can settle instead of sink. I'm going to skip that. So here we've got another one where we're getting an immediate China call by the corner. Which brings him off of his reroute. He knows that he's got to settle on that China call in case that ball comes out, just so we're matched in our zone, right? Now we get an in call by the safety, which drags the mic to be able to settle underneath that in. And because we got that immediate China here, right, the corner is able to continue to get depth. And now he's matching because we've got a new number 1. As this guy crosses over, he becomes a new number 2. This is our new number 1. So the safety and the corner are going to end up matched up on him. Safety is playing inside break. Corner is playing outside break. Safety should have inside leverage. And when we get the mic settling underneath it, there's not really a high-low picture here for a quarterback. And if we look here, we had an inside release, so we got a China, China, China call, which kind of settled him off on the reroute. Now he's going to square this guy up, and he's got his feet inside this guy's crotch, and that route is dead. Corner is matched up to the outside, into the boundary. Quarterback had to eat that ball. You know, we're just matched across the board. So here we've got Another China call coming from the field. So I should get a China call from the corner. I should hear China echoed by the safety and by the nickel here in this look. We're in our we're in our 4-2-5. We're in our true nickel package. This is our nickel here. So he should be echoing China, 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 which should bring him off like he's got his reroute, forces the guy to go inside underneath him. We're fine with that. He had to come off his line. He didn't get a free release on the safety. So we're good with that. If he has to beat him inside like that, we're not okay. I mean, we're okay with that. We're not gonna. If he beats him inside immediately off the line of scrimmage, we're gonna have a problem with that. But if he's running vertical and he has to duck underneath, we did a good job rerouting. We forced him off his vertical line. That gives the safety opportunity to change his pedal tempo. So now our corner can start to match this vertically because that's his new number 1. Safety can work to be inside leverage. We can start to settle on this here as a, we should get an echo by the mic so that we're getting a settle on the opposite side. Right now, we got a situation here where the back is releasing into the boundary. So while he's settling for this China call, he still has to anchor. He cannot get out leveraged by that back. All right, if he gets out leveraged by that back, we have nobody else out there. So we're end up in good situation, good shape here. Mike is opening, right? So this is one of those ones where we talked about when I was going through the presentation part of it, through the PowerPoint slides. Mike is opening to the field or the threat, or is he opening to the number 3? Well, here the number 3 is lined up into the boundary, right? That's a whole lot less space than it is to the field for him to be able to play from this hash to the far hash, right? So he's going to open up to his immediate his biggest threat. His biggest threat here is space. We can always buy him back into the boundary because we've got good numbers into the boundary. I mean, he's lined up on the hash as it is. So now we've got him back into the boundary. And if we look at this as the ball is being caught by the running back and we start to get our pursuit, we're going to have extreme numbers into the boundary. We're going to end up with like 5, 6 guys into the boundary here. So he opened to his threat. Then he's able to play back into the in call by number 5 here. This is one of those ones where I'd rather see a better reroute here. But because we called that, he called it a China call. 53 calls this a China call, which I could tell because 49's eyes went right to his left as soon as that guy beats him inside. He got a China call, so he peeks to his left. He's still climbing vertical, so the safety's taking him. Now the safety's screaming in, and we're just passing things off. This ball is caught, but we've still got numbers into the boundary. So we're okay with that, but the rules for the mic on that are to open to his biggest threat, whether it's number 3, space, or the back. Again, these perfect play offenses, I think sometimes they hinder themselves with these things, coach, instead of just being able to line up and play. Now, I would say here, as we're matching this by number 2, we're wrong. We should never end up in a situation where we're turning, chasing, running like this, flipping our hips from an outside linebacker, right? We want to be able to reroute, stay square, sink, and settle. We got a China call. And notice how when we start to see these China calls, you can start to see guys reacting and settling off on this. We're in our 3-4 type of stuff. We're in our joker because this is our nickel. So we've got 3 backers, 3-3 stack, bringing a pressure to the field, right? So now we're ending up with 3 guys underneath. Get a China call by the corner. Nickel echoes it. Safety echoes it. Mike hears it and echoes it. He settles on it. We're still matched vertically, inside and outside on the new number 1. We're here with the corner and the safety. We get an in call, and I think that's where we got screwed up at, was we got that in call and a China call, and our linebacker he had a bad reaction to it where he should just be getting a little bit of depth. He should have been at about instead of flipping and turning like that, he probably should have settled off at about the 15-yard line, where he would still be able to play that China if it came all the way across, and where he could sit underneath that in, right? If number 2 there, was running, still trying to run that route. But as you can see, we're matched up across the field, right? there's not a lot of open windows for a quarterback to be able to throw this ball. The mic is sitting underneath that in call, right? Because we don't chase anything under 5 yards, but he settled off on that China call, but he's still in the window for that in call. Safety's working back to get the inside leverage. So by the time that pressure hits home on the quarterback, everybody has somebody matched up with, within proximity to make it a tighter window, a tougher throw for a quarterback. And we can see we flipped here. We were lined up wrong. This is one of those things where the pass strength, run strength, right? So now we get those guys lined up right. We had time because of their perfect play stuff. So we're in our 3-3 stack stuff. These guys are playing a little wider just because of the speed on the field. Bring pressure. He should settle off again instead of flipping and turning like that. And I know it was that in and in, the China call from his right, the in and in from his left. He's just got to stay square, sink and settle. And you'll see there'll be a couple clips on here where that same kid does it right, and he makes a huge play. So here we're back in our nickel stuff. Get that China call immediately by the safety because we've got that immediate release by number 2 going inside. So safety and the wheel are screaming China, China, China. That brings the mic off. You can see as soon as he's starting to hear that, he starts to settle off on that. He's echoing it. So now we've got both linebackers on the opposite side of the field reacting to that. We got ourselves an opportunity to still be matched against that speed coming across the field. We did not get out leverage. And so then when I started, in terms of pattern reading and being able to drag your help sides, this is where those China calls, those in calls, and echoing these things brings guys back and they start to settle off. So they're either sink or settling based off the calls that they're getting. So you'll see this one here, Coach.
Yeah.
I put this one in because we're zone pressuring, and we did not do a great job of teaching our nose tackle to echo these calls, right? And so you'll see communication is lost when the nose tackle is not echoing it. Well, you'll see where it doesn't get echoed across the field, and there'll be a seam created on this China, 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 China. We got the echo from the safety. The corner calls it, the safety echoes it, the linebacker echoes it. The nose does not echo it, so the mic is still coming. He's still drifting. He's still sinking, right? And so now all of a sudden we get this guy, he's out-leveraged us, and he's able to turn up, and now we've got an issue where he's falling off into a seam and being able to pick up more yards after a catch, right? So that's one of those things where if I could go back and do it, I would spend a little bit more time with our nose tackle, right? Like we didn't think through that one as hard as we probably should. That the nose tackle, we're thinking, nose tackle, he's not going to get a whole lot of depth. Now China's going to run right into him. And in hindsight, right, when we're getting into some of our group stuff, 7-on-7 stuff, we want to make sure that we're involving that guy in there as well, so that he's able to pick up those calls and echo those calls. Here we go. And we did a good job. Pressure, forced the quarterback to step up. We're forcing him to throw the ball under 5 yards. Nose tackle misses a tackle, on a receiver in space. But we didn't do a great job of echoing that call across. We do a great job of pursuing so that does not turn into a big play. But now we've got an issue where we've got a guy coming across the field and we don't have guys settling off. They're still sinking. Now we got another disguise going. We're showing pressure. We're playing like we're in zero, or are we playing quarters? Are we playing palms? And all of a sudden we've got a situation where the pressure forces a throw. Now, as we talk through this, right, you get a China call by the safety. Now he knows that he can look for work, right? And now he's back to looking for work. He's looking for crossers. He's looking to be at the depth of number 1 if he's running it in. And up top, right, like this is one of those things where I say the quarterback trigger, right? Number 2 is out underneath linebacker depth. But if we look at where this quarterback is at, there's no reason for this corner to jump that, right? Like we play the quarterback's eyes, quarterback's front shoulder, quarterback's hand on the ball, right? Until that quarterback's hand drops off that ball, none of these guys in the secondary, we're quarterback triggered. Now that this quarterback's hand is dropping off the ball, you start to see guys taking off towards the ball, right? Where he's throwing the ball, where that front shoulder is aimed at. But, we're able to show some zero. We're able to show a little, some different disguises in there. We screw with the pressure, force them to step up. Now we're matched. They get a completion, but we're dropping that body right where he catches the ball. There's no yard after the catch. Here we've got that China, this is just a true shallow cross where you're getting cross field, China from the left, from the offense's left, from the defense's right, and then from the defense's left, you're getting the in call, right? Let's see how that plays out. China. So guys start to settle. You get the in call, echo. Now we've got guys at every depth, and you're throwing the ball right to a defender or you're throwing the ball to a receiver where we've got somebody in proximity when he catches the ball. This is a match defense where we're not spot dropping. We're not giving guys the opportunity to catch the ball with a lot of green grass in front of them or a lot of green grass next to them. They're going to have a defender close to them. So again, we're able to show some disguise here, back out of it a little late. And this team did a good job. I'll show you the flux that they created for us a little bit on this high-low because we get the China call. We're able to pass it off. The issue that's created for us is they brought the back, so they do their check down on the same vertical axis as they're doing this in route, right? And so now that creates a little bit of flux for us. They got speed on this China call, so he catches it and he's able to stick his foot in the ground. But because of this in call, right, and the fact that the back came to the same side, now our mic is starting to drift back away from into the China call towards the end, right? And so now as he's catching that, we're out leveraged a little bit, but we're still getting three guys to the ball. So he's able to get a little bit of yard after the catch where a lot of these other offenses, the way that they were using their check down, it doesn't create that same threat for us. I really like the way that they packaged things offensively with their check down because it forced us into some flux as a defense in terms of where our checks are coming from, or where our feet are stopping at, where we're settling at. So we get the same type of look here. And I want to make sure I point this one out here, right? This is out over the top of the depth of the linebacker, right? Our linebacker, our nickel here, right? Our nickel Sam, right? He's aiming for 8 yards at the reroute point, and then he's sinking because he's feeling vertical threat. But this out is happening at his depth or behind him. So now our corner can play this, and we're still inside, outside on this post here. And then we're reacting back to the ball off the throw. Still getting the China and the in calls here to the boundary. Pulls guys' eyes, gets guys to settle. We're underneath the end. We're able to be in position where we can react to if they throw that ball underneath 5 yards. But we're in good shape here. We're still matched across the board. Now we'll get to some of this where we're actually getting into corners read and corners reaction where we're looking at this quarterback trigger. We're going to get 2 out underneath linebacker depth here. I'm going to say this corner is wrong. This quarterback is ready to throw the ball right now. And you'll see he hesitates in his break here. So he's getting out of it late. The ball is in the air. Now, instead of being able to have a pick, right, we're making contact when the ball is caught. And that's just on the hesitation in that break. But we're out of there when that quarterback's hand drops off that front side of the ball. You can see where he's ready to start breaking on that. Whereas if we look to the top of the screen, right, there's no need for this corner up top to jump this route because the quarterback is not keying that side of the ball. We're triggered off the quarterback. His hesitation here cost him an opportunity for a pick 6 versus just having big contact on the tackle. I'm going to go ahead and skip out of this. His head's on the wrong side on that tackle as well. But, he hesitated on his break. So we'll look at this one here. And into the boundary. try to slow it down so we can see where this quarterback is at, if he's triggered or not. Both hands are still on the ball. He's on his back foot. That front foot is not, or that front hand is not dropping off the ball. We're getting vertical threat here still by number 1. So my corner is still sinking. He's starting to throttle down because 2 is coming out as he's reading this, right? He's not full speed in his pedal here. Man. But as that ball starts to come out, the corner is transitioning out and he's coming up on his break. And we'll see it a lot better, or a little better, without the glare from the end zone. It's out after linebacker, or under linebacker depth. Corner is able to be there. If that was a completable ball, our corner is there to make the tackle or to make a pass breakup. Where we can see here, this is a different corner. This is number 11, not number 21. We'll see him. He's got a case of the hezzies, right? This is why by the end of the season, he ended up playing himself into the nickel dime role, because some of the things that we needed to do transition-wise, he was struggling with. He was hesitating in and out of his breaks. Quarterback is triggered, ready to throw this ball, and he still hasn't gotten to his break yet. He should be about here already out of his break. He's late on this because we're triggered off the quarterback. Where we see here to the top of the screen, or to the bottom of the screen, to the field here, there's no need to jump this route because the quarterback's not triggering this direction. And I know there's some guys out there who they teach as soon as 2 breaks, you jump it. What I found in the past with that is that a lot of guys, especially if we start to deal with these spread offenses, their number 2s start to run outside hooks, right? Instead of going directly to the corner, they just turn their shoulders and they're replacing where our linebacker's not, because our linebacker's still breaking on number 2 and our corner is jumped. And so now there's a vacated hole back there and guys are just throwing that ball into that vacated zone. So we started to trigger more on this. I wanted to show this from the end zone, coach. This is one of those things for us. This is where there's a danger in this defense, right? The danger in this defense is in the seam, in between the corner and the linebackers and in front of the safeties. We do not ever want to give a ball carrier a 2-way go on the safety, right? If he gets a 2-way go on that safety, because it's essentially a split field coverage, right? This other safety is mirrored on his side of the field, right? He's on a vertical matchup on his side of the field. So we can't count on him to get there and make that play per se. So if he gets a 2-way go and he's able to get vertical on the inside of that safety, our defense is split. And that's a danger. So what we'll see here, even though our corner doesn't get a great break on this ball, as he comes up, he's going to force this, or not, he's the corner, not the corner. He's not forcing anything here, right? But because our linebacker misses this tackle, right, now we're in a situation where if we get this 2-way go on this safety, we can have our defense split. So you'll see what the safety does. He forces this thing to stay on one side of him. He forces it to stay on the outside. You'll see him jump back inside just to keep his leverage on that ball, right? Because that ball was caught outside of him. He's got to play this thing as an inside leverage defender. He jumps back inside of that. Jeez, terrible. He jumps back inside of it and forces it back outside to his help. Because if that crosses his face, we're in a lot of trouble there. So here goes one off that quarterback trigger, right? You see our corner starts to throttle down on this as he sees 2 come out here to the field. I have no idea why this quarterback threw this ball. Our corner is starting to throttle down, but he's not breaking until this quarterback drops that front hand. You see how that quarterback's hand has come off the ball now? That front hand? Now our corner is in his break. The receiver didn't even think the quarterback was going to throw the ball because he's getting ready to turn up on a wheel. Quarterback never saw the corner. And this is one of those things where it's flux. I don't know what this quarterback is thinking. I don't know if they're seeing this as like a deep quarters type of deal, or if they're seeing it as, man, or what they're seeing it as. I don't know why he throws it, but as soon as his front hand drops off that ball, our corner is in his break. And now all of a sudden we've got a big play the other direction. This is that one I told you, Coach, where they were, this was one of the top 5 offenses in the country. We scored more on defense than they scored on offense. But we created some flux for them. you know, we created some big plays just by playing our rules. Like we're not jumping things just because, you know, they're running that route. We're jumping it because the quarterback takes us there. I want to show this play here. This is one of those plays as a coach that'll frustrate the heck out of you, coach, right? From the guy on the sideline, right? This guy on the sideline. When you see it, you'll get what I'm saying here, right? Quarterback's front hand drops off the ball. You see where the corner's foot is at. He's sticking his foot in the ground, right? Number 2 is already breaking out. This is where I say it cleans it up for us when we run these double-edge pressures, coach. This is underneath that linebacker, right? Like we're not keyed on yards or depth or any of this stuff. We talk about underneath the linebacker depth. So our peripheral vision, we're seeing 2. I see him break out underneath the next linebacker inside of him. He's throttling down. Quarterback's hand is starting to come off that ball. He's in his break. We picked this. And they called us for pass interference. Now, I think the back judge came in. We got every right to the ball. I think the back judge came, if I remember correctly, came in and waved off the pass interference. But he picked that. And as you see it on this end, you see who has the ball. This is the receiver's hands right here. Both hands are on the ground. And up, both hands come up in the air. You see the flag come in. You see where 4 is at. You see the DB hold the ball up in the air. We picked that. But we didn't trigger on the route. We triggered on the quarterback. And then if we look back at the other side of this, right, like we get this immediate China call by the safety is echoed. So now we're starting to settle off. And we're just matched up across the field. And as we see here, safety is reacting to the throw, right? Like he reacts with his feet because 2 is going out. He starts to react with his feet just to get a little width towards 1. But he's triggered off that quarterback as well. So we broke on that. Right now, I would like to see my safety with a little more depth so nobody ever thinks that 1 was open. But he's reacting while he's staying square in his pedal. But yeah, that was a pick. You see the corner goes up the ball. But they call pass interference on that. That's referees sometimes that drive you crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So here goes one where it's immediate threat, right? They're throwing a hitch. Or, you know, some guys run this instead of running slants. You know, it's like he breaks down and the ball's thrown on his inside shoulder. But this is where the corner has to do a great job, right? He reacts to it and he has to protect that seam, right? This ball cannot fall in that seam. We cannot end up with that 2-way go on the safety. So he forces it back to his help. The greatest help to that corner in this situation is the sideline. We've got that 12th defender out there. So you see he crosses. If you're going to miss the tackle to the inside. Protect that seam, right? So you see the safety is starting to settle back to the inside on that. Like we do not want this ball to end up, I'm going to try to pause it. We don't want this ball to end up getting vertical coming right through here, right? If you could follow my little white dot. We do not want that because that's where it's dangerous. We don't have immediate help. We're not going to get it fast enough from the opposite side safety. And so if you're going to miss it to the inside, and we can all play to the sideline, just get pursuit angles. I think I showed this one already. Yeah, that was like danger to that spot or into that seam. So here we go with another one of these different types of immediate flat threats for the corner. You see the corner is ready to drive on it based off of where this quarterback is at. He's holding, he's settling. He's not going to continue to get a whole lot more depth because he sees his threat. He sees that immediate threat, but he's not really breaking on that until that quarterback is ready to throw that ball, until that front hand drops off that ball. And then we're reacting, take on the block, and get pursuit. You know, that was a 1-yard gain, 2-yard gain, coach. Like I think we're in good shape. Linebacker does a good job here, right? Fighting off the cut. I'd like to see him use his hands a little better, not get taken down. But he does a good job of not letting that ball cross his face and get back into that point where it can have a 2-way go on the safety. Here goes against another one of these perfect play teams. This was a really good offense. This was the one I was telling you had the 160 plays a game in the 3 games before us. Showing pressure, bringing B-gap pressure, and they make the right adjustment to it. But you see how quarterback trigger brings us all back to the party. It's immediate flat threat for the corner, so he's kind of hesitating there. We're still getting 3 guys to the ball. That's got to be a perfect throw. And even if it is, and they catch it, coach, there's 3 guys there. We're matched proximity-wise to that threat. Now I want to talk about the mic on this one a little bit, right? Because this will be our mic here to the field. That's our MAC to the boundary. But the back is here to the field, so our mic is really going to open hard and heavy to the field because he's got a double threat over there, right? He's got the space to his number 2, and he's got the immediate number 3 with the backs released. So he's going to open immediately to the field on this one. Real hard trying to get to that 8 yards, to that 8-yard rerouting point, but we're just got to make sure that we're getting bodies in the right direction. So we're still, right, 4/3 to this side, right? The nose is still coming this direction. Nose is opening to the back into the space. And we're still matched. Here it goes again. Right now we're bringing double edge. They try to fall in that seam, and we're still getting guys to the party. Back goes the opposite direction, but we still get a guy there. That's a sight adjust. That's a hot route, and we're still impacting the play with the coverage. Now here we're showing, we're throwing a lot of disguise at them. This is what I was saying, Coach. We were screwing with them pre-snap with all their perfect play stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of. If you're a perfect play guy defensively, I'm a fan of it to the point where we're going to give you a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is one here where we get the China call. I want you to see what happens to the mic, right? We get this inside slant, like almost 1 step vertical, and then he's trying to cross the face of the 8-yard reroute. But when we get that China call, see how it opens the mic back up? So we get China. That's what brings the mic back to the party here. That's what stopped his feet. That's what kept him from getting depth. That's what kept him from going to the opposite side. Because the opposite side here, he was opening to the back on this one because the ball's in the middle of the field. He felt like the back was the biggest threat. So he opened to the back, got the China call from his right. Now he's back in on that play. Whereas if we were spot dropping on this, coach, right, and he's just dropping to the opposite hash, our defense is split by this route. Did a good job of getting underneath us at that depth, right? Because he pressed it vertical, we got a China call late from the safety, which, didn't get us, settled right away with our 8-yard aiming point from our linebacker here to our right. But because we got that China call, because we're able to drag his eyes back, we're able to impact that. That's an incomplete pass where if we were spot dropping and he just drops to the opposite hash, they split our defense. And that thing might still be going, that could run for days.
Mm-hmm.
So that China call, he snaps his eyes, and he's back in on that play. He impacted that. That's a pass breakup by a linebacker. Now we're going to start to see some of these vertical threats. Right, here goes a China call, right? And so what they're trying to get here, right, is we're getting a China call, immediate China call by the safety and by our nickel here. So now they're going to try to attack the immediate, threat of the, immediate flat threat on the corner and get the one-on-one because now our reroute is getting gobbled up by this China call. And again, this is one of those ones where you see our corner is ready to break on it, but our rules, he doesn't go until that quarterback's hand drops off that ball. Right? And we're okay with that. That's a pass breakup, right? And I would like to see him a little harder, more shot out that gun, shot out that cannon, because that's a pick, and he's capable of that. Now you'll see one, coach, where it gets dangerous and, what we gamble on when we say quarterback trigger is there's not very many quarterbacks out there that are going to drop their front hand off the ball and pump and bring it back and then, double move you with that front hand dropping off the ball. It's not very many quarterbacks out there that are going to do that. Not to say that it won't happen, right? We've got a clip here where it does happen, and you've got to watch how that secondary rotation, how that's got to come into play, and then guys have to be able to react to things. So here we get that China call, right, by the safety and by the nickel. So we lose our flat help from the linebacker. He's got to play up to make sure that he's not getting out leveraged by the back. But we just got to get in and out of our break here on this route and impact that play by the corner. Safety is able to throttle down a little bit because he doesn't have a vertical threat. Up top, right, this is one of those ones where we're talking quarterback threat. This guy is out underneath, right? There's no need to break on this because the quarterback's shoulders are the complete opposite direction. Now, he's throttling down, right? But if the quarterback snaps back and tries to come back to the field, right, we're able to break on that based off the quarterback trigger. And this is one I want to make sure I had that part of that clip on there, Coach. You see how fast they get to the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
But then they're going deep into the play clock because of some of the things that we're doing secondary-wise in terms of holding our shell, being able to run things out of multiple coverages. And then when we see here, he's taking that outside look because that China call brings our Mike back to his left, right? So we've got two guys in proximity. We can break on this if he tries to fit this ball in here. So he tries to fit it outside. I would like to see my corner break on that with his inside hand instead of his outside hand, right? Because then there's a pass breakup instead of being a complete pass. Here's another one where we've got an anchor, right? Like our wheel here has to do a great job of anchoring because his back is out in the flat. So now we get this in and in call, right? Because now that's over the top of the linebacker. It's deeper than 5 yards. So we're getting in. That pulls the Mike, or that pulls the Mac. I'm sorry. That pulls the Mac over, pulls him out on the anchor. But now we still are in proximity. There's not a lot of space there to catch and run because we've got bodies matched up. We're not spot dropping. We're pattern matching that. So I'll take that back one more time, right? We get in and in call by the corner, echoed by the wheel. That draws his eyes, that draws the Mac's eyes back into the play. So he's not continuing to sink on number 2 running vertical. So he settles off on that, and that's no yards after the catch. He's got to do a great job of getting out there to anchor so we're not out leveraged. The nickel here, he's got to do a great job of getting out here because they're getting that speed motion. So he's going to fly through his reroute. This reroute might happen at 5 because he's got to be flatter because he's got to make sure that we're anchored out there and not getting out leveraged. Get that in and in call, and guys start to settle. Now, this is where it's a little flux for the corner here, right? And like I said, I really liked what Wheaton did here with what they did offensively against what we were doing. There's an immediate flat threat here, and this is coming out underneath linebacker depth. So he's going to have to balance 2 of them and then react to where the ball is actually going. But these are the things like this. This is a great concept if you can do this, if you're seeing this coverage offensively. If you're watching this and you're an offensive guy, this is a great type of concept to attack this coverage. It creates a little more space for your guys. Now that throw, you got to be able to protect it, and that was one of the things that we had a luxury. We had good offensive or defensive linemen, so they're able to impact that throw a little bit with their hands up. But, we've got to be able to, defend that. And, we're getting anchored out here with the wheel. Then our nickel got threatened. And then, they're creating a little more space for themselves on the inside here. Now, this is one, I have this one on here. My corner is dead wrong. If we see this, the quarterback has the ball in one hand, that front hand is off. My corner should be coming. Linebacker did a great job of reacting to this, but our corner is dead wrong. Our corner is still sinking. The ball is in the air, and he's still sinking. And then he's standing up out of his break, right? Like, corner should be throttling off because he sees that outbreak coming underneath linebacker depth. Quarterback's hand drops off the ball. Corner should be foot in the ground, breaking on this ball. And instead, he took another 4 steps, right? And so this was just a good one to have just for teaching purposes, right? We're celebrating the fact that the linebacker almost did your job, right? Like, but that should be you on that play, right? We're happy the linebacker can get there and help out, but that's really supposed to be the corner.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably going to call me tonight and tell me, or whenever you post this, he's probably going to call me and tell me that I should have outed him like that. Still got a great relationship with these guys. So again, here, this one, he gets a better break. This is the same kid, same corner. Quarterback's hand is dropping off. He's got a little bit of hesitation in there, but he's driving on it, right? Linebacker did a good job of getting his width, getting there. But as we look at it, we've got guys in proximity to that throw. All right, so this one here, Coach, this is another one of those reasons why we don't just jump immediate routes, immediate flat threats by the corner, right? If we look here to the boundary, up top, we're going to see number 1, the number 1 receiver, he's going to just stop. He's going to take 1 step, stop at the line of scrimmage. Number 2 is going to replace him vertically on that same plane, and then they're going to run like a post by 2 to the field and post by 1 to the field, or, you know, so what they're trying to get is like 3 verticals over the top of that stop route. And so what we're able to get here, right, is reroute on number 2. He's getting wider, so we can come off the reroute. We're hanging on this guy in the flat. He sees the guy in the flat, so he's hanging, but he's getting depth still because the quarterback hasn't triggered him here, right? So we've taken away all of the vertical threats. Only place he has left is to go to the ball. Now we're going to, as he goes to the ball, it's so late in the play that the linebacker is the late, right? The linebacker is the late flat defender. Immediate flat defender would be the corner. Late flat defender would be the linebacker. Right, but we're still able to sink off in that and cover the vertical because we didn't jump just because they put a body in the flats immediately. Right, we didn't get any trigger by the quarterback to tell us that we needed to break on that. So we're still matched vertical, and we're in good shape. If you want to throw the ball out there, we'll react to it. It's a 0-yard catch, and we've got a late flat defender, and we'll react, you know. But if that quarterback had triggered the corner on that immediately, he would have came off of that, and then we would have had, you know, safety on number 2 who was running vertical. But because we're holding that like that, and again, this is one of those things where I think the flux in this, they had seen this as cover 2. And so they thought they were going to be able to get the immediate jump by the corner and get in behind us and get the whole shot in between the safety and the corner. But because it's not really cover 2, right? It's in the quarters family, quarterback's stuck back there holding the ball, and that allows our pressure to get to him. 4-man rush gets to him because there's flux out of the coverage. It allows you to play some games and things like that. So here we go. Now I showed the one earlier where they were sitting inside the zone, where the in and in call, the China call, and the in and in call. So here we got the China call, and you can see how that impacts the mic. It brings him, it settles him down, and now he's able to react to it. I don't know too many receivers that want to live like this. That's a shot by 2 inside linebackers. That's a completion, but I mean, you can see when that kid's getting up, you can see him shaking his head like, it looks like it's open, but we're not spot dropping. The guys are coming off because their eyes are getting dragged back in. So we got echoed in, or we got the China call echoed, right? So you can see both inside backers here are opening to their twos because we're bringing field pressure. All right, so we got the reroute to the boundary. We're bringing field pressure, so the linebacker to the field, the inside backer, our Mike to the field. He's opening to two, but because he got that China call from his left, he was able to come off. And while it looks like that defense is split, we're getting a good shot on the receiver, and not too many receivers want to live like that, taking shots by inside linebackers like that. All right, Coach. So I talked to you earlier about this right here, how he was turning and flipping his hips and turning and running. Here's a great example of him sinking. Oh, geez, this ain't even a play. I'm sorry. Forgive me. This is an immediate flat threat. This was just one for immediate flat threat, where they try to get it out there. You can watch the corner trigger on the quarterback. Perfect play, guys. These perfect play, guys. We got double pressure. They try to get it out there to the back immediate, and you see how we just passed those things off, right?
Mm-hmm.
China. We're passing that off, and then everybody's just triggered off the quarterback. It looks like there's a hot route there, but, you know, I heard Nick Saban say something. I'm going to pause it. I heard him say something before that Georgia game. Everybody talks about blitzing, and really what you're getting a lot of in college football is like pressure, but it's not blitzing. You know, blitzing tends to be more with man coverage, where you're bringing one more than the offense.
That's what that means to me. Hot means that you can't account for him in the protection. But I mean, they only brought 5.
Right.
Or y'all brought 5. I mean, they brought 5.
Yeah,
2 deep, 4 under. I mean, it was 4 deep, 2 under.
Right. So we brought 5, and they're throwing hot, which to me is that's not really hot.
No,
right?
You got 3 guys in coverage over there.
Right. We're still sound, right? We're still 3 over 3, or really 3 over 2.
Yeah,
but
with the running back out there, the running back's the third guy.
Yeah, so we get 3 over 3 because they bring the ball. But we're still sound because it's a match defense. We would like to have numbers, but we'll be okay if we're evened up.
Yeah.
And we're bringing the Mac back from the opposite side. We're bringing 42 here from the opposite side because of that China call, right? So we still get 4 going in that direction. But they're throwing that hot because they're seeing the pressure. But because of the way that we're covering this thing, right? It's not really hot. We're still matched on that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now here we get into some, more of our vertical type of things, right? Now safeties have to do a great job of pedaling and staying square, where we see here, right, the difference between 2 safeties. First, talk about the boundary safety. He's opening his hips, right, and working across his face because he lost leverage. Where we see the field safety pedal, right? Now he's breaking on this ball from a pedal position instead of an open hip position, right? But even once this ball is caught, we see that rotation that we talked about earlier, right? Backside safety is flat. We got our home run threat. And I put this one on here because now I want to start talking a little bit more about these safeties and how these safeties are going to play. This is really, back rollout. I don't where they're trying to get with this. They're trying to attack us in the flat off of comebacks and things like that. And, we're in good shape. This does not concern us at all. We're going to be matched against it. We're late. Our nickel he's late to the flat. This happened over the top of him, so the corner doesn't need to jump it. That's really on the nickel. You completed that pass for 2 yards, Coach. Like, I don't know where they were trying to go with that. We're in good shape because that flat threat was over the top of the nickel. All right, here we go. Now we can start to hopefully get into some of this safety play. So we're getting these verticals. You see how these safeties are staying square? They're slow out, and then their tempo picks up and their pedal, but they stay square. Reason we stay square, we leverage kick. I don't know if you remember back in the day, Coach, like when I was in high school, it was everybody taught the weave, right? Like where you're turning your butt where you're going.
Yeah.
What we've learned in this is that if we're able to leverage kick where I'm taking my inside foot and taking depth and width on that step, I stay square on my pedal, but I'm still able to protect my leverage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to change directions. And so you'll see these guys, like if we watch the safety here to the field, right now he's about 2 yards inside the hash, right? Which leads me to talk back to some of our, and I've missed the opportunity on some of these clips to talk about our field hash rules for the safeties, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll get to that, and if I need to skip back to some plays to show it just at the alignment, coach, I will. But here, so this receiver is lined up on the inside of the hash. The next receiver is lined up inside the numbers. Ball is on the opposite hash. There's no need for us to be lined up on the hash to play over the top of number one if our threats take us there, right? So we can play inside the hash on this. Whereas to the field, both of these receivers are lined up on the numbers. So we need to be lined up splitting the numbers in the hash.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where we're not really as concerned about our leverage by alignment because we're going to work back to inside leverage, right? So here we're almost lined up head up on this receiver to the field. But if you watch this safety, his first step as this receiver starts to work outside, you see him start to widen himself out. He took a leverage kick step with his left foot and then squared himself back up so that he was still in his leverage. And then he worked it back the opposite direction when the receiver went inside. Stayed square, but protected his leverage. Right up top, he started to open. He thought about opening, but this is where they got to have great patience and just stay in their pedal, stay in their pedal, stay in their pedal, and stay over the top of these things. There's no room for, I know a lot of people think when they see these too high type of defenses, when they see palms or a quarters type of defense, that you're going to be able to hit things inside in between these safeties and these linebackers. Here we didn't get any in and in calls or any China calls. So our linebackers are sinking, and our safeties are playing over the top of it in still proximity, inside leverage. When that ball is thrown, both safeties are in inside leverage on their receivers. Right? So where is this fit at? He's got to fit this ball somewhere in between that linebacker and that safety on a rope, which, I'm as a safety, as a former safety myself, I like my chances on those throws. Where we see here, this safety to the boundary coach, right? He gets twisted because he opens too early. Right? Now he's got to flip turn and work back to his inside leverage. Where, my guy up here to the field, this is the kid last week I talked to you about. Sometimes he does these things where he's teasing the quarterback. He's getting bored. He wants the quarterback to challenge him and throw him. So he's almost flat foot reading this thing and drives me crazy when he does these things because he should be pedaling. Now he's got great reaction time, and if you see it, he's not beat. Right? Like if this clip showed it, he was not beat. Yeah, it doesn't show it. But here we go with another pedal, stay square until now it's time to drive on the ball. One of our biggest things from a secondary that I haven't talked about, Coach, is if a quarterback takes off, we want to make him pay for it. This is always a no-no for us, is to allow a quarterback to just walk out of bounds. Right? He's got to either hit the ground on a slide or he's got to hit the ground because we tackled him. But he's got to pay for coming out of the pocket because that's a cheap way for us to cover everything and for you to gain yards. So we just want to react to it and make him pay. I'm on 30s. I'm on his butt for the fact that he let this quarterback just walk out of bounds here. But if we could see this here, right, he's slow out 12 yards off the ball, off the receiver, slow out, and he's squared up until he has to drive on the ball. But there's really no space here for a second level throw because we're sinking. Are you going to try to fit that thing in that 5-yard window, Coach? Is that throw that you want to tell your quarterbacks to make when you're throwing seams in between linebackers and safeties? I would think not. I would hope not. Yeah, we just got to do a better job of keeping that quarterback on the field or making him hit the ground. But see these safeties, they're staying squared or over the top, they're inside leverage. And we'll see it here. This would be a great one to watch this kid here. how he opens his hips. I want him to pedal. Where we saw the last clip, the same kid, he was pedaling. We saw the clip before, he's opening his hips. I want him to pedal. Pedal, pedal, stay square. Where into the boundary, we're square, right? He opens his hips because he gets that threat, but then he squares back up, right? Like that's the way that you play in this coverage. You want to stay square as long as you can, as patient as you can in your pedal. Now we do a better job here making a guy who takes off pay, right? Like he's got to hit the ground. And the reason why we want to stay square, coach, is just imagine if this was a double move, like this receiver threatens us inside like this, just to run a corner route, right? Now my safety is beat because he's opened his hips and we're protected, running so hard to work inside leverage. If this number 2 receiver here to the field, right, breaks out, we're beat because we didn't stay square. Whereas up top, we're in great shape, even if he tries to run it out or if he's running a corner, because we're squared up on that in our pedal still. But when 4 breaks in like that, if 16 had come back out on that route, we're in trouble. So here we're getting some zone pressure. He does a better job here. 4 does a better job of staying square. He's not pedaling. Now, the difference in this is where we're at in field proximity. We're inside the 15-yard line, so we don't want to pedal into the end zone, right? Where that's about as much pedaling as we want to do in the boundary. It's somewhere in between where the boundary safety is and where the field safety is. The difference in them is their athleticism, right? And so, again, like I said last week, we coach guys to be who they are athletically. We just want to make sure that we're not backpedaling to the back of the end zone and giving guys, extra space to be able to fit things in between those linebackers and those safeties. But here we're in great shape. There's really no space or no window. All right, so I'm not going to be overly critical on these guys in terms of the spacing of how much ground they're given or how much ground they're not given. I would just like to see 4 stay square for at least 2 steps here, so we don't have to worry about a double move back to the outside, like a corner route back to the outside, where we're, having a flip turn and things like that, giving up ground because we opened our hips too early. But this is one of those ones where even if he's throwing it and he gets it off, or he's not getting hit in the chest or getting hit under his arm as he's getting hit here, this quarterback, as he's stepping up into the pocket, even if he gets off a good throw, both of these safeties are in position to make a play on the ball. This would be a better example of it. See how these guys are squared up? Only thing that you're going to have is a check down versus this, if you're just trying to run 4 verticals. We're matched up top. We're matched here. There's very little window. We're sinking because we're not getting called off with in and ends or China calls. And so now we're able to square up and just react to the ball. We're still getting 3 guys to the ball. Like, Coach, I'll live with this defensively. Right, in the game where we're up and, you're trying to come back on us and that's your answer is to hit the check down, that's a win for us in the secondary, especially on 4 verticals. So now they're starting to get out, right, throw it to the check down a lot earlier, right, almost like the old angle route or the Texas route by the running back. But again, we're sinking, we're squared up from the linebacker's perspective. So now they're able to react downhill to this thing because they don't have their shoulders turned. Where I showed you earlier where the kid was flipping his shoulders and turning backwards, and as a linebacker, that creates a dynamic where you're not able to see these things, right? So now we're able to come up, miss the tackle, but we still got 5 guys to the ball. We're here, Coach, 4 needs to be pedaling, right? Like as I'm watching this field safety here, he's just kind of hanging and driving on it. He needs to be pedaling, right? Now he's anxious. He's trying to make plays, but he's got to pedal. He's got to pedal and stay. See how even though the boundary safety here, even though he reacts to the inside breaking route on the in call, he calls in, and we're getting the linebackers underneath it, he still squares back up. Like, we got to stay square because it gives us an opportunity to not get beat with double moves by these inside receivers. But if that's the way that you want to live, coach, against this coverage, is to throw comebacks, I'm like, we did our job. If you want to throw comebacks and you want to throw checkdowns, we did our job. But here's a great job by this same kid, right, that was twisting and turning and flipping and turning earlier, of sinking, settling, and being underneath the throw. That's the same kid that got twisted and turned around. So now he gets an in call to his left. Get the in, and so he's able to sink underneath it, gets his hands on it, and we should have had a pick there. Ford dropped it. But this is that same kid, 42 here, my guy Lewis. He grew from the flipping and the turning. We worked on it. He gets his hands on it. We had an opportunity for 2 picks on that. And again, like I said, coach, if this is the way you want to live, at some point in time, we're going to get pass breakups against it, because sometimes these comebacks get to be in far throws. The ball's going to be in the air a little longer. We might get a good break on it, better break on it. We allow you to eat up our cushion, and you're on our toes. And so, we're in great proximity here. There's still 4 verticals. We're matched against it. Inside leverage are the safeties, sinking underneath it. There was nothing to call us off on the settle. So we're in good shape. I would still like to see our outside backer get a little bit more width on that, but because of the vertical threat, he's sinking underneath it because, again, we're pattern matched. We're not spot covered, right? So, this is the way that we get to this coverage. The way that we get good at this coverage is 4 verticals. We practice this, and when teams try to attack us with it, it's almost like comical. Now, here's one, coach, where I was saying sometimes it happens, right? Watch this quarterback. He pumps it with the front hand off the ball. So you see where the corner is at. He's driving on it, right? Now I got a problem. My safety is driving on it instead of rotating, right? So now we really are beat here because the safety. The corner is not wrong. The corner's job is to trigger on immediate flat threat off the quarterback trigger.
Yeah.
It's underneath linebacker depth. The corner is perfect. The corner did a great job. I'd like to see him react and get his hands on it because it's college football, right? And that's the difference. College football and high school football, you can get your hands on the receiver. The safety is wrong. Safety's got to be out over the top of that. Good thing quarterback overthrew that a little bit, but my safety is wrong. He's driving on it where he should be opening over the top of it. And so I like to make sure that I put that in there because that's a great teachable moment for safeties. That's when we talk about that rotation. And then this one here, right? This one, we get the in call by the safety, and our linebacker is put into a bind because he's got the check down in front of him, and he's thinking down and distance. We want to make sure that we're, matched on that check down. And so he's trying to balance the 2 of them, and they fit that thing in over the top of him with a great throw. But our safety is still able to react to it, right? Pedal, 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 protect your leverage, protect your leverage. He lost it where he opened. And that moment where he opened his hips there instead of staying square, that's where the completion happens. And so now we're a step late and we're hitting the guy as soon as he catches the ball. We're matched, but we didn't make the play because we didn't stay square. So these are those teachable moments. Even though it's a good tackle, it's a good hit, we could have made a better play. That could have been a pass breakup or a pick. Right now, like I said, I like what Wheaton did offensively. They put our linebacker in a lot of flux in that because they're putting the check down to the same side as their dig, the same vertical plane. Now here goes one where they try to double move, but because there's no quarterback trigger, we just sink underneath. We just continue to sink, and now we're making plays on it. We're just matched against 4 verticals. We get an in call down here to the field. And so the mic starts to settle off. But from a secondary perspective in the boundary, even with that double move or the switch route, right? I think they ran a switch here, right? Yeah, they ran a switch here. So we're still in good shape, coach. They're switching, right? And that's one of the ways that people will try to attack it. is to switch on it. But, you know, you still just reroute and you just treat your responsibility. The new number one, the new number two, eyes in the right place. That's why it's important for safeties to stay square and for corners to just trust their quarterback key and the vertical release of one. So, I mean, we're still in good shape here. And our communication here, even though they tried to switch and run a dig down here to the bottom of the screen, in and in call, we're still in good proximity if they tried to fit that in there to that dig. All right. I want to watch that last one, Coach. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Yeah, I think this is another one of those switches. They run a switch into the boundary. This was totally unnecessary. I didn't need to watch that, Coach. All right. So Coach, can we pause that?
Yes,
Pause
sir.
that. I'm gonna go to the 3x1 stuff. I'm gonna pull up the presentation real quick.
Yes, sir.
And go through the 3x1 stuff. Ooh, geez. Not my game. I don't want to open the game. How was that, Coach?
I really appreciate you going over all that. I mean, this has got to be one of the best, you know, mix and match quarter coverage talks on YouTube.
Yeah, so here I'll go through the 3x1. I'll pull this up here. I think you'll like this, Coach, the 3x1.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are that we're crazy for doing this kind of thing, but for me, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because majority of the time, and I'll say this again once we get started. But the majority of the time, our 3x1 stuff, a lot of our stuff is cover three, right? So being able to find a way to still stay in two high quarters type of coverages, that's one thing that I love because one of my favorite answers against 3x1 is go cover three, match cover three.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a great answer. Next week, Coach, if you allow me, I'll show you some of the cover three stuff and the way we play it.
Oh, Coach, you're on, Coach.
So yeah, let's get to this. Let's get to this. Knock this out because I missed that whole game. I've missed that whole game right now. What's the score on it?
Yeah, Mahomes went back in there and went right down the field, and they're winning by 10 now with 7 minutes left. KC's winning by 10, so KC's kicking off to Jacksonville with 7 minutes left. It's 27-17, Kansas City.
Okay.
Yeah, so Mahomes is like, it's like a Bob Lanier, like went into the locker room and came out, man. I think that was his name, wasn't it, for the Knicks?
You probably called it right. You probably got that shot.
Yeah, I know I would have.
Yeah, in order to get that, especially
yeah, like you said, he's tough, man. I mean,
that was his right ankle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's that back foot too. That's nope. You can't press on that.
Yeah,
throw.
but Jacksonville just had a good return, man, on this kickoff. So yeah,
it's a good game, huh?
Yeah, they got about midfield right now. And I mean, you know, the big man T-Law, Trevor Lawrence, man, he's just playing so well. He's so big. So we'll see. But I appreciate you going over this today, Coach.
That's all good, Coach. I'm thankful that you allowed me to do it. Okay, so we could get started when you want to.
Yeah, Coach, I'm good. Let's rock.
All right. So here we got the 3x1. Geez, here we got our 3x1 check. We call it Vegas. And these are the rules. It's a mix and match coverage. Now it's Tahoe, right, or palms to the extended number 2 and number 1. This is a mixed match coverage, like it's a combo coverage. So we're going Florida to the number 3, right? And we're aligning to threat responsibility at the snap. So it gives us an opportunity to do some great things disguise-wise. And then we're mono to the backside. And I'll talk through mono when I get to the next slide. Then we're still quarterback triggered. We still have to understand the flat threats, immediate flat threat to the number 2, number 1 side, or are we talking late flat threat to that, to the extended 2 and 1 side, or the mono side? What is the flat threat to the mono side? Is it coming out of the backfield because that'll create some some different looks for us. We still great, right? Vertical and seam threats. We got to be able to understand that from the safety perspective. We still have to have that great communication that drags our help's eyes. Then we got secondary rotation, very similar to what we've been talking about with Florida and Tahoe Palms that we just got done talking about. And you still have opportunity to play chess against RPOs. You got options. You can disguise things. You can put that, bring pressure. You can put your, on the line of scrimmage, big gap defender to the backside and create opportunities for you to eliminate some of those conflicts for your apex defenders. And it's still great against multiple personnel and multiple, still great with multiple personnel and multiple fronts, multiple personnel packages, sub packages, or multiple fronts. So if you're a 3-4 team, you can run this just as well as a 4-3 team can. Or if you're a 3-3 stack team, you can run this just as well as a 4-2-5 or a 4-3 team can. And then it's great for disguise and creating flux for quarterbacks and play callers. So here's what we're doing. So this line here is just to break it down. This line right here, just inside the hash. Like if we're looking at this from a defensive perspective, at the right middle where that line is at. Outside of that is Tahoe, right, or Palms coverage. Same thing that we just got done talking about, reading number 2 to 1. Inside of that, our weak safety is vertically matched. In our Florida rules, any vertical route over the top of the inside linebacker is the weak safeties. That's who he's got to play. Anything underneath that, he can rob off and look to help. Now, mono on the weak side, what that means is the corner, anything that's vertical, anything that's not an immediate inside break. Like if it's a China call immediately, we're not mono, we can pass that off to the backer and we can start to zone things off. But if that receiver takes 2 steps upfield, he's the corners. So you can come up and press, or you can, disguise some things. It could look like you're playing cover 2 out of this package. But when that mono call, when we're monoed up back there, that means that the wheel is responsible for the back. So if we get an immediate route from the back, the wheel's got them. Unless there's, zone call by the corner, because we're getting that immediate in breaking route, that China release from the number 1 receiver to the backside. So here you see here how we're able to zone this off if we get that China call, right? If we get the 4 verts, right? The wheel safety is matched up on 3, strong safety is matched up on 2. The Sam or the nickel, he's sinking. Corner, because it's vertical by number 2, he's reading 2 to 1. He's vertical with number 1. And, so here we're passing this thing off on the mono side because it's an immediate China. Now, if that thing presses upfield, like if they're running that slant at 5 yards, that wheel's got that back. So here we're getting to Vegas. All right, Coach, I'm gonna go back to some film here. You good with that?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, let me find it. Playlist. Should go playlist on this one. Go into this. Now for presentation, because I got Vegas already. And so we could play this, Coach. We play this against open trips, like your 11 person, your 10 personnel. We play it with nub tight ends to the backside. So here we're playing this against 12 personnel, where they've got like an ace type of look with trips. So like your ace trips type of deal, right? So our corner on the backside is mono with the tight end and the wheel versus on the back. And then here we got the Tahoe with the Palms coverage with the field safety and the field corner. And then we're vertically matched on this tight end. And so as you see this, right, as the quarterback is seeing this, and I wish I had this on there, sometimes we clip those plays a lot later than we would like to, because we try to hide our disguises. But we were able to hold this disguise as a too high look, but this is really not a too high coverage. Right? Like this would be something that you would consider from an offensive perspective as saying middle of the field is closed. But we're vertically matched on number 3 because he's deeper than that tight end, or deeper than that linebacker. The tight end is deeper than the linebacker. right? We're able to pass that off because that is a China release by the tight end. We're getting a China call. So if the back swings, then the corner is able to zone off with the linebacker on that one. Quarterback's got to eat the ball on this. And because the quarterback did not trigger, let me take this back. Because the quarterback did not trigger our palms coverage, our corner is able to just kind of sink and balance that vertical release of 1 and the outbreaking route of 2. And we're sound against the run. So if we look at this from a quarter's perspective, right? Like just this picture right here at the snap of the ball. If they were to run this ball, right, we're gapped out, plus we got that 8th man in the box with this safety here, right? And he's still on his run pass key, outside hip of the guard to that tight end. So if that tight end engages, we still have good run support here. And if that tight end tries to hook him to the inside, right, our run support comes back the opposite direction because our run support goes off that tight end's butt and our run pass key. So we're still in great shape with adding a guy to the box without having to play cover 3, but being able to still do some different things in pass coverage to create flux for that quarterback's eyes. So when we get in this one here, this quarterback he's really reading the high-low, right, trying to go tight end to tight end. But because we were able to zone that off on that China call, we're still matched in coverage, where it almost is like a man-to-man type of deal where there's bodies in proximity where the windows are so tight. Only place he really has to go with this ball is to the outside shoulder of this tight end, which can be dangerous because we got a corner out sitting out there. And that's got to be a tight throw. He's got to put it really on his hip. If he throws that thing outside the hash to try to get him open, we got a great chance of that as a defense. And here, from the safety perspective, we're leveraged out. We're sinking because we didn't get it from the Mike's perspective. We're sinking, right? We didn't get an in call or a China call, so he's sinking underneath the vertical. Safety's playing that thing inside leverage. We're matched up, and quarterback, all he can do is eat that. So here we got it against 4 quicks, right? I'd like to see this safety hold this a little longer, play it to the opposite hash a little longer, to the boundary a little longer. This safety here, the boundary safety, just for the purpose of disguise. But again, we're Tahoe to the 1 and 2, to the reading 2 and 1 with these 3 guys. We're quarters, we're Florida here with the backside safety and the number 3. And then we're mono here with the safety, or with the corner and the linebacker on the wheel on the backside with the back. Now they're going perfect play. They're trying to figure out what we got, what we're in. They changed their splits. Makes it easier for us because he comes closer to the safety. 3 is vertical. And this is a good concept, right? Like, this is a good concept. They attack us where they think we're weak because our safety is pushed to the field, right? Corner's job is to maintain his inside leverage. He has to maintain his inside leverage. And our guys were so comfortable in their pedal because of some of the work that we did in our pedal, that they would some of these guys, or some of our corners, would rather be in a pedal situation than in a press situation, which I know is odd for some corners. Most corners want to get up and be physical, but we had 2 long corners that like to pedal. And so we're basically playing off man back here, right? But we're able to disguise this a little bit, able to get just a little bit of a reroute here. It almost looks like a cloud type of coverage, like a running cloud to the field, right? Because we're able to play this Tahoe right to the field, right? But we react on that, and that's an incomplete pass. We maintain inside leverage on that post to the backside, or that glance route to the backside. And not, for their part, they went where the ball is supposed to go because our safety didn't disguise that very well. He's pushed so far to the field. I would like to see him actually open with 3, but my thing would be to always check the film and see, is he reacting to the quarterback, or is he reacting, to the quarterback trigger? So as 3 is breaking out, he's squared up, so I could see the quarterback's eyes, and I could see that he's not chasing 3 right there because ball's being thrown outside, back to the backside. So here we got it against 3 quicks again. We do a better job disguising this one. And you'll see the safety 14 here, who's our nickel. He was our starting nickel. He was rotated at safety. But you'll see him work the 3, which tells the quarterback go backside. Corner loses a little bit of leverage, but we're still monoed up back here. Where, you know, the mono is actually with this backer because we're bringing edge pressure. Right, coach? So this is one of those things where we're able to change the look a little bit with the front. We're bringing edge pressure in the boundary. So the mono is now happening with our Mac instead of our wheel. Because we're in our 3-4 package here. 5's got to do a better job here of maintaining leverage. He loses leverage a little bit because we get that pound step from the receiver. He gives him a good step to the outside, and we react to it. We go with it. One of our rules that we always talk about in terms of maintaining leverage is you never go with the first move away from your leverage, right? And so this will be one of those situations where we show it on film. He gave him one move away from his leverage. He's supposed to be inside leverage. He gave him an outside move, and we reacted to it. That's a negative. That's a minus, right? He's got to stay on that inside leverage. There's a seam there, but because our safety stayed square, we're able to buy back both safeties back in there, right? And because we didn't get any China call, or we did get a China call coming from the opposite side. So we get a China. So we lost our linebacker, but so our safeties were the ones who were able to impact this play. It's got to be a tight window to fit that post in there. And, you know, he's throwing it as a second level pass instead of, you know, throwing it as a rope in that hole. And we'll see it from the end zone. But that China call echoed, brings the Mac back up towards the China. He's got to settle off, right? And you can see right there, right, we're getting both our Mike and our Mac settling off on this because of that China call. But as we can see here, right, watch 3, he holds the skies a lot longer than 5 did in that last one, but now he's pushing the 3. 3 is vertical. Right now we were able to fit back in on that. Here we give the skies up a little early. And they go immediate out route, right? Like they go immediately, we're protecting inside leverage, so they go speed out. And coach, that's one of those things, right? Like every coverage has a weakness. If you want to throw speed outs against this, that's fine, because, you know, we can rotate back and we can get into some of our, you know, like we do enough, right? We have, you know, cloud weak, cloud strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we get to our cover 3 stuff, you'll see where there's times where our disguise, we're showing Vegas and enticing you to think that you could throw that speed out back to the backside, but we're really in cloud weak, cloud into the boundary. And so you're throwing that thing right into our chest, right? But this is just one of those things, it's a change up, because one of our best answers for 3x1 stuff is cover 3, match cover 3, which I'll be willing to talk about next week. More than happy to talk about next week. But again, this is just Tahoe to the 2-and-1, match vertically on number 3, right? And so in this situation, it's an immediate flat threat. It's mono on the backside. And this is one of those situations where you would love to see the corner comfortable enough to come up and press. But hey, I'm fine because I know my guys, they were comfortable in their pedal. They were comfortable playing off man, which gave us some other things that we could do where some of our cover 3 stuff and our, you know, cover 1 stuff, it's hard to tell the difference because, you know, we're still playing a 7 yards, 7x1 to the inside off the ball. So, you know, if you want to take a speed out on this and on 1st and 10, right, our job is to make sure that doesn't turn into a 10-yard game, right? This was a 7-8 yard game. I would like to see him with a better break on it so he's getting there when the ball gets there. But just for the purposes of being able to teach this coverage, that's where the mono comes in on the backside. Like if this back swings, right, now we're not even really worried about mono because the back is to the front side. So now we just really zoning everything off, and the corner's just got to be great at getting out of that break, can't have hesitation. So here we're running this, and you know they've got wider splits and they're bunched up, but we're still matched to 3 with the field safety here, right? With the backside safety, right? We're monoed on a tight end and a back, and the back takes away the mono because he's on the opposite side. So really, we're just zoned off, right, on the backside. And then we're just reacting to the ball. But for us, it's just Tahoe. It's a combo coverage. It's just Tahoe and Florida. And he's almost stacked. I would like to see him this safety, I would like to see him at least, at worst case, in the A gap on the backside, right? Best case, I'd like to see him in that B gap because I think he can still play, right? The vertical at 3 athletically when it's a tight end in that B gap. Now, if we're talking about expanded, right, then I'd like to see him, a little wider on that. But actually, this one, Coach, this was unbalanced. They gave us 4.
Mm-hmm.
So we've actually got an ineligible here, right? So, I guess I understand why he's playing over like that, which means I would like to see, we are in under. So, I think we're in good shape. But he's matched to 4. Like, I can see where his eyes are at. He's matched to 4. I'd like to see him really with his eyes on 3, right? Because it's unbalanced. So, it's just one of those things where, deep offenses, they come up with different things to try to attack it. But I think we're still in good shape. If they went vertical with 3, we might be in trouble because his eyes are on the tight end instead of the number 3 receiver. Here we go. This is that ace trips type look again. And they run it to the backside. And we'll see this one here. He's over too far. This is where, again, I like to see him in that B gap. At best, at worst, I'd like to see him in the A gap. He's way too far over. Like, he's on the front side of this. He should be at least, on that hash. And because he's on that front side of it, he gets trapped behind the umpire. This should have been his play. He gets that blocked by that tight end on his run pass key. He knows right now the ball's going the opposite direction. He should beat this thing across the face of the opposite side tight end. But here, because we're mono, because his back is in the pistol look, we got to treat him the same way we would if he's, on the left side of that quarterback. Our corner is able to treat this as crack and go, or crack and replace, right? Tight end engages, he's free to go. And so our corner is the one who makes this play. Gets ran over a little bit, got to get his shoulder pads down, bring his hips with him. But our safety, 5 by alignment, is wrong. And so he doesn't get in on this play. This was really 5's play to make. 5 should have made this play. 5 should have made this play right there, right? The corner should be getting there late because 5 is in on the play. And really, 5 gets overlapped by the safety who's on the Tahoe side. Like, if we watch this, right, the Tahoe side safety, he reacts to it and he beats 5 across the field because 5 is misaligned and gets trapped by the umpire. But this is just a way to add that, right? So now we've still got 8 in the box instead of being able to get 9 in the box because they overextended us with the extended number 2. We're still able to get 9 in the box versus 3 by 1. This one is a better disguise versus that tight end. See how he's on this side of, he's on the boundary side of the hash, the backside B gap, and still able to play vertically matched to 3. We got better at it as the year went along. Can't get cut out there by our apex defender. That's always a problem. If you get cut, you're gonna lose the ability to stop that ball, and you're gonna let it get out the gate a little bit. And this is when safety takes a bad angle. Safety gets there late. He takes a bad angle. So it picks up an extra, 5 yards that it didn't need to pick up because our nickel gets cut and our safety takes a bad angle. But this is better alignment from our backside safety. And as soon as he sees that guy engage, he can go. But right now, even though it's the 76 number, if he's just playing this thing by his rules, that's an ineligible receiver, can't catch the ball downfield. But if he's playing it by his rules, as long as that guy is vertical and unengaged, he's gonna stay in his flat foot read. As soon as that guy engages, he should be coming downhill. Good old Brendan, number 11. So here now we got it to a quads type of look, right, Coach?
Mm-hmm.
And usually we would have something for an empty check, but we felt like we were okay in this because they didn't do a lot of running 4 verticals from that quads look, that quads bunch look, right? They weren't sending 3 and 4 vertical, so we could still be matched. I think they only had 22% or something like that, if I remember correct, of times where 3 even went vertical, right? So this was more for us what we were trying to do. They were numbers based, so they were either throwing the screen or running quarterback trap or something like that, right? So here we're still matched up. We've got essentially 5 over 4 and 2 over 1. So we're in good shape in terms of the numbers of the pass for the things that they're trying to get accomplished, right? So we're good here, but to the backside if they're trying to go slant. We're good here to the front side if they're trying to throw screens, right? And we're good, gapped out across the box if they're trying to go quarterback trap with these wide splits. So for us, it was just a numbers game. This was a way for us to still have that extra guy in the box and still be able to play the different things that they tried to do. As we were searching through what coverage would work against that, should we go empty check? It was one of those things where they're not really threatening us vertically. What they're trying to do is check, to our numbers game. So we're able to attack it with Vegas, because it kept us 8 in the box. But really 7 in the box in this one. You see our safety, our backside safety, he's got his eyes, he's working towards his run pass key to the front side. I don't know if I need to show any more of those ones, Coach. I'm ready to go talk about the split field coverage.
Yeah, man.
All right. Let me go back to this Prezi. So this one is a true split field coverage. I think there's a certain national championship coach that calls this cover 7.
Yeah.
For us, we could just call it Florida Tahoe. It's just a check, right? We get Florida check on one side, Tahoe check on the other side. What we're doing with it, it's Tahoe to the slot surface, Florida to the pro surface. So if we got the tight end and the Z receiver, we're gonna run basic quarters over there. And if we got a slot receiver and a split end, we're gonna run Tahoe to that side. And still the same thing, quarterback trigger, understanding the flat threats, vertical and seam threats. It's the same coverage rules of everything that we've gone through. Still gives you the same benefits. Still great for disguise. So it's Florida to the tight end side, and then if we get the slot on this side, then we're going Tahoe, right? So I'm going to break into some film on that one right now.
Yes, sir.
So here we're Florida to the field, Tahoe to the boundary. We did not do a great job of protecting our passing strength, which would be into the boundary with the B gap defender on the line of scrimmage. So we got hit by RPO here, but it's still the corner that's got to be able to come up, and he can't let that thing get vertical and get a two-way goal on that safety, right? I'd like to see him make this tackle, but if you're going to miss it, you miss it to the inside, because you got the 12th defender out there, and you can't make the sideline miss. You can get a two-way goal on the safety and make the safety miss. And as you see, as the safety's coming up, he's working himself, settling back to the inside, because that thing cannot cross his face vertically to the inside once that ball is in play. You see the safety comes in, and his feet start to work back inside. And then we just take angles to the sideline if that thing, if we miss that tackle from the corner's perspective. Corner does a better job here, but it's Florida to the field because that's where the tight end is. Tahoe down here to the boundary. Corner does a much better job of getting that thing down. It's immediate flat threat. So he's coming up, he's reacting to it. Same rules. Tahoe down here to the boundary, same rules. because we don't have the immediate B gap threat on the line of scrimmage. We don't have that immediate B gap defender on the line of scrimmage. Our will down here into the boundary, he's got to play the front. He's a B gap defender. Mike is playing the run. Our nickel up here to the field, our Sam up here to the field. I believe this is our nickel though, but our nickel Sam up to the field. He's got that B gap defender, so he can play the front for him, which would be pass first. So here we're Florida to the left, or to the defensive right, Tahoe to the defensive left. Able to throw some press in it, a little disguise in it, because where we're at in the goal line, in the red zone area, show a little bit of zero or man free, back out of it. We're just playing Florida Tahoe. Create some flux for the quarterback, force him to hold the ball a little bit. Show pressure. The offensive line was a little screwed up, didn't know where they were going because we were showing pressure. We back out of the pressure and still hit home because the quarterback's eyes are a little screwed up. He's got some flux in terms of where we're at with the ball or where we're at with our coverage. And that's the one where I think they wanted to try to hit the tight end, coach, but we're in quarters, right? Safety's got him matched up vertically. As soon as he clears the linebacker depth, we're in great shape. So here we're in the boundary. We got Florida to the field. We've got Tahoe. We buy the safety back into the boundary in the run game. So essentially, we still got an 8-man box. It's another way to get an 8-man box versus a 2x2. Safety is involved in that play. Here again, we're able to disguise it a little bit, but it's Florida into the boundary, Tahoe to the field. Guys back out late, right before the snap. Pressure still hits home. We still impact that, make the quarterback move his feet. Pressure still hits home, even though we backed out of the pressure. We're just playing Florida, just playing straight quarters down here. Incomplete pass into the boundary. So here we got they got tighter splits here, but we're still Florida into the boundary, and we've got Tahoe up here to the field. And this coverage, Mike has to do a great job of getting depth, right? And when we get this combo, the split field coverage, he's got to do a great job, just like in regular Tahoe or just like regular Florida or Bay. He's got to do a great job getting depth until something drags his eyes off of it. But here you see we're matched up very well against 4 verticals. We're matched up very well against smash. Matched up very well against, outs into the boundary. We're just reacting to that tight end. That's 3-yard gain. If he catches it, we're in good shape. We're able to do some things in the front, coach. We're able to switch, Sam and the DN's responsibilities, by alignment or by call, go more head up instead of shade by the outside, by the DN. And so that now the outside linebacker is a C-gap defender, which should entice him, or D-gap defender, which should entice him to be able to make it into the flats a little faster, a little earlier. We're in good shape against zone read. So now we can stack him here in that, in that 70 type of look, where the D end is more the C gap, the outside linebacker is more the D gap. So if we get in zone read, we're more in that fallback type of position with this outside backer, but we're still Florida reading the reading the run pass key here between the guards outside hip and the tight end. Tahoe to the field. And we're in this out of nickel. Coach 20 was our nickel this year. So we're, really defending. He was a corner at the beginning of the season, but we're really able to defend the run well against it. We're sound against it, and we're able to still run, too high type of coverage, which, most offenses want to run the ball against anyways. And this is a great run stopping defense for us because it's really just quarters. We're just making the adjustment to the split. So here we were lined up in Vegas. We had our 3-by-1 check. So we're lined up in Vegas. They motion. So now we're checking Florida Tahoe, Florida Tahoe. And so they try to run double speed outs into the boundary, and we're in good shape. That's on the linebacker, flat defender in the corner to drive on. Happened underneath linebacker depth, so the safety will be late getting there. We just push it over with the corner and the safety. We're just running quarters here. Another look at it. And this is the type of route that is the easiest to complete, right? As you get the tight end to the flat, and then we just got to react to it. Because that's where we're weak, right? So you'll see here where we actually get our switch, right? So we got the switch call, right? We're in our over front, but we get the switch call where we're literally by proximity, we're lining him up in a 5 or a 6-eye, right, on that tight end, which just lets this guy be a D-gap defender. Lets our Sam be a D-gap defender. We're going to be a little weak into the flats if you just run a tight end out there right away immediately, but we got to do a great job of reacting to it. So here was another one where we were starting off and we were getting ready to start off in our cover 3 stuff on this one, Coach. But then they pushed their motion back to it. And so, we just go Florida Tahoe, quick check, Florida Tahoe. And this is one of the things where, I know some people have been wondering, well, why don't they throw double slants, or why aren't people throwing slants against RPOs? Our safeties were really good. Our safeties came up and rocked double slants. Receivers didn't like to live like this very often. So here they throw double slants, right? We're Tahoe, right? So we're getting that China call on the number 2 receiver. So we lose our reroute getting out to the flat. And so now the corner's just got to track, he's got to track it down, and the safety's got to come up and react to it. And, it's not a knockout hit, but it's enough to let a receiver know that that's not really the area of the field that you want to go to. All right, and I think this might be the best one, Coach, to really talk about our field, the field hash split rules, right? So once they get lined up, right, tight end is here in the boundary. He's about 3 yards, maybe 4 yards outside the hash, right? Safety is playing just outside leverage on him. This guy never makes it to the bottom of the numbers, right? The flanker into the boundary never makes it to the bottom of the numbers. So we don't have to play much wider than where we're at to be vertically matched on 2, right? Now, number 1 to the field is inside. He's at the top of the numbers. Number 2 is at the bottom of the hash, like the inside of the hash. So for the safety, if we're getting the number 2 immediate out, number 1 vertical, where can I play to be able to open up and be over the top of 1? And still be able to, at the snap, work my way back to inside leverage on number 1. Can I play on the hash? I don't need to play outside the hash because it's not that the split between 2 and 1 is not that great, right? So now if 2 is splitting the difference between the tackle and the hash, then our safety's got a, he's got a real decision to make in terms of, field hash split rules, because we're basing it off of this, how much field we have, what's the split between the receivers, and how far off the hash are we going to be lined up. So here, with the split of the receivers, 1 and 2 to each other, and the split between the number 2 and the tackle, the safety can line up, 1.5 yards, 2 yards inside the hash, and still be in good position to get over the top of number 1. Versus, if number 1 was lined up outside the hash, or number 2 was lined up outside the hash, then, you know, the safety may have to adjust his alignment just a little bit. But again, this is one where the safety is reading the quarterback. He's driving on the quarterback. If we see that quarterback's front hand on this one, that's where he's dropped. You see that next step, safety is in the ground, and he's out of that thing like he shot out of a cannon. Like, we didn't react on the route. We reacted on the quarterback's key, on the quarterback's trigger. And so here, right, we've got the Tahoe into the boundary now, Florida to the field. And this one, both safeties missed a tackle, but I want you to see the rotation, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
I put this one on there just for the rotation. Backside corner, the field corner here. He's the home run threat. Field safety, he's across the field flat. And then he's got to adjust once he gets to the opposite hash. How is he going to get to the ball once he gets to the opposite hash? Is he going to go vertical? Is he going to come downhill? Or is he going to keep going straight across? Front side corner, he's immediate force. Front side safety, the secondary force. He can't stop his feet. He's just got to keep running. He's got to shoot his shot at the ball. Like, you know, I always say, you know, imagine the ball is the hot girl at the party. You want to shoot your shot, fellas. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But because we had that great rotation, the corner was able to get in on that. The safety, the backside safety was able to get in on that. Both safeties missed, right? Front side corner got blocked. Both safeties missed, but that backside corner was able to square that thing up and force it to stop his feet to buy other pursuit chance to get back in on the play. Here's one. I know this is a bad snap, but we're Florida into the boundary. And this is against empty. And again, normally we would have an empty check-in, but here, you know, this was the running back up here to the top of the field, Coach, at the tight end position. We didn't really consider him to be a vertical threat, right? Like, we wouldn't want to run this where there's an opportunity for this person to be in a matchup with our Mike right down the middle of the field, right? Because that's where the defense gets split, right? So, like, just imagine here, right? If two runs a corner and one runs a hitch into the boundary, right? Our safety is running with the corner because that's his vertical threat. And then if two to the field runs a 5-yard out, one runs a vertical, right? Safety is out over the top of the vertical. If the quarterback triggers him that way, he can snap back and have a matchup of number 3 vertical on the run on the mic right down the middle of the field, and there's nobody else there. Right. So we typically wouldn't run this here, but we did not consider their running back to be a vertical threat when they ran out of this formation. Now I know there's going to be some of my guys from this, you know, school of thought defensively heard on, hey, you just gave the answer how to attack this defense. But that is the threat. It's very similar to Tampa in some regards. That's how, you know, we end up with the family of names, Coach,
Mm-hmm.
where, you know, Tahoe and Vegas, you know, are similar to, you know, because we're sinking in the seams. Reno was our sink in the seams cover 2. So that was our Nevada family. And then our Tampa family was with the Mike running in the hole. The Mike's really got to be in that hole. It's very similar in thought when you're in this Florida Tahoe type of situation where you got that split field coverage. That Mike has to run that hole if there's that threat. And, you know, so you don't want to end up in that situation if that's really a vertical threat in that, you know, position where they're at in this one where they're, you know, an empty. Usually we would have an empty check, but here we consider him to be a check down probability. So we're in good shape in Florida Tahoe versus this against the split field coverage. That's why I put that one on there just, you know, just because of that, to be able to talk about that right there, because that's where that danger, that's where that threat is at. So here it goes when they close down the splits. And this is where I'm saying where we got to be able to understand personnel and formation. The tight end here is the number 1 receiver into the boundary. So that's telling us right there, that's the side that we want to go Florida on, just in terms of matchups. So we're Florida to the boundary, we're Tahoe because there's 2 quicks. Even though it's a mirrored formation, nasty splits by, you know, by two receivers on each side, we're in better shape going Florida to a tight end than being Florida to a slot receiver, playing flat foot read to a slot receiver where we're actually doing this versus a tight end. And we're actually able to get ourselves in great position. We got an immediate China release by number one. So we're getting echoes, China, China, China across the field. And so guys are coming, they're not sinking. Now they're starting to settle off, and now the quarterback is trying to throw that into a hot window. Similar here, right?
Yes, sir.
Tight end lined up here, right? So we got to be able to understand the personnel and into the formation. They're coming in with that nasty split again. With Florida to the boundary, Tahoe to the field. See where the Mike has to get that depth until he's called off on it. We got an immediate China release by the number two. So the Mike is settling off. And this is one where we just pass it off. We got the China release by number one. So the corner is now matched on the new number one. New number one goes in. And so we're anchored because we blitzed out. We blitzed with the, this is the Tahoe side. So we blitzed with the nickel. So our new anchor should be our Mike. But because of the combination that they got, we really end up with our anchor being the corner. He's not going to get out leveraged by that back. He just passes off the one to the safety, and we're in good shape. And that's where the safety has to do a good job of pedaling. Right? My guy here doesn't, because he's an aggressive kid, but he should be pedaling here. And I would make sure that I want to emphasize that. That was an All-American. That was a special kid. He had some abilities that not a lot of other guys have, but he should be pedaling here. Down here to the bottom, we're flat foot read off that tight end. He's vertical past linebacker depth. We've got him because this is the quarter side. This is the Tahoe side. So, split field coverage. Some people call it cover 7. We just called it Florida Tahoe. It was just a check for us. We would never call, this defense, it's a check. We call Florida, and based off if you come out in a 2x2 or 3x1 or, 2x2 and 11 personnel, 2x2 and 10 personnel, we're going to be able to get to any one of these checks that we've talked about in this session. So here we've got it again. Florida down to the boundary, Tahoe to the field. We get an immediate out by number 2. So I want you to see, like when we talked last week about the Florida, but the safety being able to be at the depth of number 1, this is a great example of it. He's at the depth of number 1, and he's ready to rob off on number 1. Now, number 1 breaks out, so he starts to look back inside for where he can work otherwise, right? Because now that's to the safety, and we got underneath help with the outside linebacker being late to the flats. Mike has got depth. Mike is getting his depth. He's not settling off, and he's sinking. He hasn't settled off yet because there is no China call. There's no in call. Now the outside linebacker here, he's able to look for work because he's in the flat. He's balanced it. He knows he's got help inside and over the top by the safety, so he can start to settle off a little bit. And we end up in good position, matched up even against the check down. We're matched against every route that they threw out on this concept. There's a body in proximity. This is match coverage, pattern reading. There's no spot dropping, just covering green grass. We're all working towards a receiver. The entire back half is working towards a receiver based off of communication. So here, we're Florida to the top of the screen, Tahoe to the bottom of the screen. And like I said, this offense, they did some things that really challenged us. We got an in call. So now we're settling off here with the nickel to the bottom of the screen. Got an in call, so we're settling off with the wheel to the top of the screen. But when number 2 goes out up here to the top of the screen, notice how the safety starts working towards the depth of number 1. He wants to be at the level of number 1. So we're just really robbing off on that dig. As soon as he goes out, safety can just start to throttle it down and look for work. Now we get out leveraged here by this back a bit. Now we've got to work to get back to leverage point, right? So he's working to get outside of him because we really are out leveraged because our anchor got caught inside his reroute point, sinking underneath it. So we really did get out leverage. This offense did a great job of being able to play with vertical and vertical alignment or vertical positioning of their check down and, you know, vertical seams and in routes and things like that. I really liked the way that offense did that. So you see the nickel here just has to keep coming, force that thing to come back inside because he's got an anchor. He can't allow that thing to turn up outside. And Coach, that's really about it. I'm going to stop sharing and put my ugly mug back on the face. I thank you. I really hope I got turn the light on. I'm sitting here in the dark doing this talk, but I really hope I got somewhere, you know, drop some knowledge on that. And
man, if there's a better talk, I want to see it, man.
Was able to paint a good picture of how the checks are, because the big thing is we would never call Tahoe, right? We would never call Palms because we don't know if your splits are going to be right, right? We call Florida, and if you come out and make us adjust, we're not going to run Florida against extended splits. We're going to just check Tahoe. You come out in a 3x1, we really don't want to be in Tahoe because 3 can split. We can end up with a bad matchup, 3 against our Mike, right? A quick against our Mike. So then we just check the Vegas, right? If we want to stay in the quarters family. And then if you come out and it's 11 personnel and you got that tight split, you know, tight end type of guy out there, we're just going to go Florida Tahoe. We're going to split field coverage it. And it's all in the same time. This is day one install stuff for us. Before we even get to cover 3, it's just our quarter stuff. This is our checks. And for the safeties, it's huge in order to be able to understand the passing strength and personnel and formations. You know, so man, I appreciate it.
You know your stuff, man.
I feel like I've been talking a whole lot.
Yeah, one of my buddies texted me earlier today, and he was like, "Man, you gonna get somebody to talk about DBs?" And I said, "I already had Coach Cooper talk about cover 4, and he's coming on tonight." So, man, everybody in Totem Pole Nation and at the Championship Football Coaches Clinic, man, they got a lot to listen to here, man. It's a lot of information, but Coach knows his stuff, and he's on the film, and he's showing y'all. If you got any questions, hit Coach up at Coach Cooper 6, and we got a lot of football to watch this weekend, Coach. The Chiefs won. They pulled it out.
Did they?
Mahomes went back in there and, you know, won the game. So I guess I guess the Giants are playing now.
Oh, that's going to be a good game. There's going to be some physical running and defense in there.
I see you got a Vikings. Is that Minnesota?
No, this is a gift that I got from St. Lawrence High School.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say it's like, ooh, they're gonna get a little mad at me. It's in Illinois. I don't want to say the wrong city, but it's just outside of Chicago, St. Lawrence High School.
My brother's a Minnesota fan.
Okay, yeah, no, this is not Minnesota.
Yeah, right on.
I do black and yellow the correct way with the Steelers.
I'm a Mike Tomlin fan because he's from Virginia. Right?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Yeah.
If we ever get Mike Tomlin on, Coach, you're gonna come on with me, okay?
I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Definitely love to do that.
He's Bill Corley, Coach Corley is the assistant quarterback coach, and he coached at William and Mary University of Richmond. So,
okay,
we'll see what we can do, Coach. But thank you. Next week, everybody will be going over cover 3. Coach is gonna be extensive in going over that, and Coach, just thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it, and I love to do it. I love to talk ball and
Amen.
share knowledge and share scheme and thoughts on it.
Amen. Thank you.
And if you have any questions like technique or anything like that, please feel free to send me messages or reach out to me directly at Coach Cooper 6. My DMs are open for football. Like don't DM me on nothing outside of football. I just kind of scratch my head. But if you have questions, technique, because I know I don't spend a lot of time on the technique. I'm talking more scheme and structure.
Coach, we'll have you back on to talk technique too.
Oh, awesome. That'd be awesome.
After you get done with cover 3, Coach.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. You have a good evening, Coach.
You too.